Chapter 26. A few days later, a Going Merry, which Kaya gave to Luffy, was sailing on the blue sea. Because they had obtained a new ship, everyone couldn't help but be curious and admired the equipment on the ship. When Lin Hai came out of the room, he saw Luffy sitting there looking unhappy. It seemed that he was taught a lesson by Nami. Not far away, Zoro was leaning against the boat pole, seemingly ready to take a nap, while Usopp was fiddling with his own things. Where is Nami? Nami was standing on the deck, looking at the horizon. The breeze blew her orange short hair and her curvy figure. Lin Hai couldn't help but sigh, "Nami, you are so beautiful." Without waiting for Nami to speak, Luffy said angrily, "What a joke, Nami loves money and is violent, and Duan." Luffy was hit by Nami again as if he had never learned a lesson. Zoro, who was standing by, saw his captain being beaten by Nami without dignity, and said unhappily, "Tisk." Nami looked at Zoro and asked, "Zoro, do you have any opinions as well?" Of course he had an opinion, and it was a big one. But Zoro still turned his head and looked away. After a while, Luffy suddenly became interested and ran to Lin Hai and said, "Shall we have a fishing competition?" Lin Hai was speechless. "With your active personality, are you sure you want to go fishing?" Luffy retorted, "Don't underestimate me, of course I can fish." Lin Hai nodded and said, "Okay, what's the stakes? There has to be some prize, right?" Luffy cried, "Whoever catches more gets to eat more later, okay?" Usopp on the side couldn't help but complain, "Luffy, what you said is the same as saying nothing." Although Usopp complained like this, he still joined the two people's fishing competition. At this time, Lin Hai sat on the railing, holding a fishing rod in his hand and singing, little fish, come on, there are delicious things in my bucket." 1, 2, 3, 4. Everyone looked at Lin Hai in surprise. This guy is really weird. Because Usopp and Luffy also imitated Lin Hai's shouting, but the fishing rod still didn't move. Actually, Lin Hai was cheating by using his observation haki, as his buckets were almost full, while Luffy's bucket didn't have a single fish in it, while Usopp's bucket did have a few. "Ah!" Luffy threw the fishing rod aside in anger, "I'm not going to fish anymore." "Why did you catch so many fish, Lin Hai? But I didn't catch any." "Ahem." Lin Hai looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle and said slowly, "Fishing requires patience and a certain level of self-cultivation. As the saying goes, I am as quiet as a virgin. Even if a mountain collapses in front of me, I will not change my expression. What should I do? I can't continue." However, Usopp and Luffy on the side were already looking at Lin Hai with shining eyes, and exclaimed at the same time, "Silk cake." Zoro on the side tutted again, pretending. Nami didn't expect Lin Hai to be so pretentious, especially why he always looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. "I really want to beat him up." Lin Hai waved his hands and said, "It's nothing, nothing, I'll go to the bathroom first." Seeing Lin Hai standing on the railing of the boat, Usopp couldn't help but ask, "Are you here?" Lin Hai turned around and asked, "Is there any problem?" "It's very convenient." Luffy's eyes lit up, "You won the fishing match just now, I don't believe you can beat me in this." Lin Hai asked in confusion, "You still want to compete?" Luffy nodded and said, "Of course, Usopp, are you coming?" Usopp cried, "Come on." Nami on the side couldn't help but blush, "These guys." Nami left here quickly. Soon, Lin Hai and Luffy looked at Usopp with disdain, while Usopp looked at Lin Hai in surprise. "Kaido, I will definitely grow that big in the future, right?" "Tisk." Lin Hai laughed, "Luffy will become the king of pirates in the future, and Zoro will become the world's #1 swordsman." Usopp said depressedly, "UBD. It's true that Luffy is very active." After everyone finished eating, Lin Hai had just fallen asleep in the room when a loud noise came from outside. It turned out that Luffy and Usopp had used cannons to bombard a small island not far away. On the back of the island, two of Zoro's friends, Johnny and Joseph, were resting. Zoro was a pirate's hunter like these two. Despite this, after Johnny got on the boat, he started swearing, and Lin Hai, who was woken up, wanted to chop him to death with a knife. Looking at the damaged railing, Lin Hai said gloomily, "If you make any more noise, I will throw you into the sea." Although the angry Lin Hai did not release Conqueror's haki, the aura he gave off was still terrifying. Johnny swallowed Kaido, "My companion was given by you, given." Nami rolled her eyes and said, are you sane? He's sick. Many people get sick in the ocean because of the lack of food. Soon, Joseph woke up and fell down again. At this time, Zoro asked, Johnny, do you know of a chef around here? Johnny smiled and said, of course, I've been a pirate's hunter for several years, so I know. So, under Johnny's guidance, several people arrived at the sea restaurant Flirty. However, before the Mary reached Flirty, a marine warship approached. At the suggestion of Marine Captain Hobadai, the warship aimed its cannons at the Mary, intending to sink the ship. Nami asked in confusion, where's Lin Hai? Usopp explained, he's sleeping. Nami complained, still sleeping. You guys should think of a solution, they. Luffy smiled and said, I'll take care of this little thing. The result was just like in the original story, Luffy accidentally made a hole in the roof of the Flirty, the sea restaurant. Seeing this, Zoro had no choice but to step forward to solve the problem. Nami on the other side ran into Lin Hai's room angrily. When she was about to wake Lin Hai up, she found out that Lin Hai was dreaming. When he saw Nami in front of him in a daze, he thought he was in a dream, so he pulled her and their mouths met. Why does Lin Hai feel so real? After a while, Lin Hai's dishonest hands. Nami reacted and quickly stood up and said, UBD, get up now. Ahem. Lin Hai said awkwardly, Nami, I was just dreaming, you have to understand. Nami rolled her eyes at Lin Hai. Didn't she kiss her last time in Zilloabia village? But Nami didn't care about that, and said, there's a warship outside that's going to sink our ship. Lin Hai woke up instantly. How could this be possible? Is it that Lin Hai can no longer lift the knife, or is it that Lin Hai really can no longer lift the knife? This is outrageous. Lin Hai quickly stood up and said, hurry up, Niang Zipai. Nami exclaimed, a hole, where are you grabbing? Ah ha ha ha, it was an accident, a complete accident. Those marines were just too outrageous. Don't embarrass me. Chapter 27. When Lin Hai and Nami came out, Zoro had already beaten back the marines, and Luffy was dragged by the chefs to serve as a soldier. Who told Luffy to make a hole in the roof? As soon as I arrived at the restaurant, I saw Sanji not far away holding Marine Captain Hobadai in his hands. Lin Hai was speechless, what are you looking at? Let's go eat quickly. I woke up and I'm hungry. Nami turned around and gave Lin Hai a blank look. Lin Hai raised her eyebrows at Nami mischievously, which reminded Nami of the scene just now. Although it felt good, Nami still had a mission to fulfill. Her face turned red, and she quickly turned around and said, let's go in. Soon, the sumptuous meal was served. After they had eaten for a while, Luffy, who was coming down the stairs, saw this scene and suddenly lost his composure. Luffy said angrily, you ate such delicious food while I was away. This is really too much. Too much. Lin Hai grabbed Luffy's collar and said angrily, you still say we are too much? Didn't you say you wanted to be the king of pirates? What happened? You ended up doing odd jobs. UBD, do you know that pirates are free? They are not so indecisive as you are. Pirates is such a promising career, but you have ruined it like this. It is simply a disgrace to the industry. Ha ha ha. Seeing that Luffy was speechless after being criticized by Lin Hai, everyone couldn't help laughing. Pirates, such a promising career? A disgrace to the industry? Nami couldn't hold it in any longer, she could not help but hold her stomach with one hand and slap the table with the other, and the result was. As a result, the wolf Sanji was attracted. Sanji quickly ran to Nami, then knelt on one leg and confessed affectionately, Ocean, thank you for letting me meet today. Love, please laugh at me who can't bear this pain. As long as I'm with you, no matter if we're pirates or demons, I'm ready now. Everyone around Nami had black lines on their faces. How could this guy compete with Lin Hai? Where is Lin Hai? At this moment, Lin Hai was taking out a pen and paper from the system and standing next to Sanji to record his words. Sanji reacted and found that there was a man standing next to him who was more handsome than himself. He said unhappily, who are you? What are you doing? Lin Hai urged, what about the rest of the sentence? Keep going, I'll have something to say when I see a pretty girl next time. Sanji's face darkened and he said in a low voice, are you making fun of me, UBD? Ah ha ha ha. Luffy laughed while holding his stomach, Zoro, Usopp, look, they look alike. Lin Hai pointed at Sanji and rolled his eyes at Luffy, who is the same as this perverted cook. Sanji Kaido, watch your words, or I'll beat you up. Before Lin Hai could reply, the owner of the restaurant, Jifu, stepped forward and said, Sanji, you want to fight with the customers again? You might as well just become a pirate with that guy in the straw hat. This restaurant doesn't need you anymore. Sanji said angrily, what did you say, you old man? I am the sous chef of this restaurant, how can I leave, and? Jifu ignored Sanji and went back to the kitchen to cook. At this time, Luffy stepped forward and said with a smile, Sanji, he promised you to be a pirate, come with me, ha 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 ha. Sanji explained, forget about being a pirate. I have a reason to stay here. After they chatted for a while, Luffy seemed to have forgotten that he was still a handyman here and started playing around with everyone. As a result, he was kicked down by Sanji and dragged back to the kitchen. Looking at Luffy's behavior, Lin Hai asked weakly, is this Luffy's advantage? Nami was speechless, what kind of advantage is this? Lin Hai explained, no matter who he is with, he always has the patience to get along with others. If it were me, I would chop that cook to pieces. How dare he tease you, Nami, right? Everyone's face turned dark. You, Lin Hai, are not much better, right? But who is Lin Hai? Does he care about other people's eyes? Of course not. Look, Lin Hai sat next to Nami again, Nami. Nami rolled her eyes and said, I don't have any money. Lin Hai Kaido didn't care, don't be so stingy, the food in this restaurant is really delicious. Before he could finish his words, a marine with blood on his forehead ran to the door of the restaurant. He saw his superior, Hobadai, and said quickly, oh no, Captain Hobadai, the captain of the Krieg pirates who we caught earlier, Akin, just escaped. Hobadai broke out in a cold sweat and asked in confusion, how is this possible? He was almost starving to death when we caught him, and we didn't give him any food in the past few days. How did he do it? Before Hobadai could continue thinking, a burst of gunfire suddenly rang out. Bang! Ah! The marine who brought the news suddenly fell down, and a tall and thin man stood at the door. He was a Jin from the Krieg pirates. The sudden situation made Lin Hai unable to react. What on earth was going on? That marine just fell there? Most importantly, the people in the restaurant turned a blind eye to this and thought it was normal. When I watched anime before, I didn't pay much attention to it, but now what is in front of me is a living being. Lin Hai fell into deep thought for a moment. This world is not normal. However, Lin Hai had not thought of any reason yet and did not plan to take action. If Jin is dealt with by Lin Hai here, what about Krieg? That's the big fish. This Jin is so awesome that he even pointed a gun at the restaurant waiter Patty when asking for help. As a result, Patty pressed him to the ground and rubbed him. Lin Hai exclaimed, well done, beat him up for me, do you want me to help you? Zoro, Usopp, and others looked at Lin Hai in surprise. What is going on? Patty, whose chin was bigger than his head, turned around and smiled, I won't bother you with such a small matter. My dear, I am Patty, a waiter at the restaurant on the sea. Don't underestimate me. Lin Hai waved his hands and said, actually, I really want to kick him a few times. Is there any hope for that marine? Kaido, who was not far away, said, he's dead. Nami beside Lin Hai looked confused and asked, what's wrong with you? You are a pirate, why do you care about the marines? Lin Hai coughed lightly, immediately attracting the attention of everyone in the restaurant. Lin Hai reacted and instinctively looked up at the ceiling at a 45-degree angle. Zoro snorted inwardly, this guy is pretending to be cool again. Why does this scene seem so familiar to Usopp and Nami? The restaurant guests and waiters who were attracted by Lin Hai were waiting to see what Lin Hai wanted to say. After all, this young man seemed to have a good heart. Chapter 28. Well, the atmosphere is just right. Lin Hai said with great emotion, do you know? That marine is the pride of the whole village. He is an upright person, often helping old ladies cross the road, rubbing shoulders and backs for old men, and is full of a sense of justice. But there are too many bad pirates in this world. For world peace, for a better life, and to protect people from the persecution of pirates. That day, he finally embarked on his path of justice. Without even touching the girl's hand, he resolutely went to the marine base to become a marine. He works hard every day, he is a role model for people, he is full of benevolence and righteousness. But he was shot dead by the guy wearing a turban right in front of me. I. Before Lin Hai could continue, crying was heard in the restaurant, and at the same time, the system's voice rang out, "Ding, congratulations to the host for completing a flirtatious operation, which is so flirtatious that it is beyond the sky. The host is rewarded with a set of swordsmanship, the Dugu 9 swords." Lin Hai was in surprise. In the restaurant, "Wow, it turns out that these marines are so great. How could such a good person end his life here? God is really jealous of his talent, woo. Let's not just be sad, should we do something for this marine? Yes, beat him." At one point, Lin Hai's speech immediately aroused the dissatisfaction of the restaurant guests with what Ajin did. They all rushed up and beat Ajin up. Hopadai, who was sitting on the floor, stared blankly at the marine. Was he really that great? No. Zoro, who was beside Lin Hai, stepped forward and pushed Lin Hai, saying with admiration, "It's such a pity that the marine died. Since you know so much about it, are you his fellow villager?" "Wow!" Usopp said with tears on his face, "This marine is really admirable. I want to help him get revenge." Nami thought for a moment, then muttered, "Pirates are pirates. They only take away people's most beloved things. They are just garbage in the world." Lin Hai was so surprised to get the Dugu 9 swords that he didn't pay attention to the surrounding situation. After hearing what Zoro said, he blurted out, "What are you talking about? I just made it up." "Why did you take it seriously?" "Made it up. It's made up." Zoro's face immediately turned red and he said angrily, "Lin Hai, I'm going to chop you up." Usopp, who was walking towards Akina and crying, suddenly stopped, turned his head mechanically, and looked at Lin Hai in confusion. Nami lowered her head with a frown on her face. Lin Hai doesn't know the seriousness of the matter and dares to deceive everyone's feelings. Lin Hai waved his hands recklessly and said, "How can you be so naive? I just don't like Ajin, so..." Bang, bang, bang. "Don't hit my face. Nami, you actually use high heels. Usopp, you remember this?" "Ah. I was wrong." Nami, Zoro, and Usopp beat up Lin Hai and immediately their anger subsided. Lin Hai sat up, fixed his hair, and glared at Zoro with his fish eyes. "You are really amazing, you were the hardest hit just now, right? Believe it or not, I will sell your knife and I won't even give you any money." Nami agreed with her eyes shining, "I want 90%. Zoro said anxiously, "You are really brave, you dare to try? Don't think I can't beat you. Sooner or later, I will chop you to pieces." Tisk. Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, "What's so great about that?" After saying that, Lin Hai turned to look at Nami, with a pitiful look, and said, "Nami, I was beaten by you just now, I feel I am seriously injured, can you give me some money to see a doctor?" Nami couldn't stand Lin Hai's behavior, so she took out 250 baileys and gave them to him, then quickly sent him away to play. Zoro and Usopp looked at Nami in surprise. She actually gave money to others? As soon as Lin Hai got the money, his expression changed immediately. He became energetic and tidied his clothes in less than 3 seconds. Then, he ran to the female companion that Hopadai brought even faster than Sanji. The woman who accompanied Hopadai had long brown hair, a long red skirt, high heels, and a slender figure. Lin Hai held the white and slender hand of the female companion and said affectionately, "Oh, see, thank you for giving me today's encounter. Love, please laugh at me who can't bear this pain. Beautiful lady, can we have a drink together?" The female companion said blankly, "Sure." Zoro turned to look at Nami and asked in confusion, "Why do I feel so familiar with what Lin Hai said?" Usopp nodded, "I think so." Nami said with a frown, "That's what the guy named Sanji said just now." Usopp exclaimed, "Is this guy Lin Hai a genius?" "Si Gao Yi." Zoro sneered, "Genius? Tisk, sarang." Usopp quickly patted Zoro, pointed at Lin Hai and said, "No, look at how close they are, just like a couple. I'm so envious of Lin Hai." Nami looked at Lin Hai and the woman leaning against each other not far away, and couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong with this guy Lin Hai? He seemed to have taken my money just now, and now he is using it to treat others to a meal." Zoro asked in confusion, 250 baileys doesn't seem to be enough. And Usopp exclaimed, "Lin Hai is really awesome, he is much better than that chef." Nami looked at Usopp dangerously, "Do you want to learn from Lin Hai too? I can give you money too, do you want to learn from that BD?" Usopp shuddered and quickly shook his head. No, no, I don't have the ability of Lin Hai. Tisk. Zoro sat back in his seat and muttered, what's so great about it? Just doing boring things. Usopp whispered, are you jealous of others? Zoro got angry and said, what did you say? Usopp weakly cried, nothing, I don't believe you don't want to. Nami on the side said softly, Usopp, what are you thinking about? Say it out loud. Usopp quickly changed the subject and asked, where's that Jin? He was here just now, why is he gone? Why bother? Zoro asked. I heard that Luffy will be working here as a temporary worker for a long time. Should we go back to the ship first or go find him? Nami cried, who made Luffy act so recklessly? Let's go back to the ship first. Accommodation here is very expensive. Chapter 29. The moon is dim and the stars are sparse, and the sea breeze is blowing strongly. Lin Hai did not return to Going Merry. At this moment, he was sitting on a small boat rented from the sea restaurant with the noblewoman, Lantwei, enjoying the night view. Where did Lin Hai get the Baileys? Was it just the 250 Baileys that Nami gave him? No, don't forget, what kind of person is Lin Hai? Does he need Bailey? I row the oars, paddle the clear sky and follow the flowing light. Smelling the perfume and charming feminine scent in the night breeze, Lin Hai's heart was moved. At the right moment, Lantwei turned around and looked at Lin Hai, pointing at the Going Merry not far away, and asked, is that your boat? Lin Hai nodded and said, the man wearing a straw hat today is my captain. I don't know when we will set sail. Lantwei said softly, life is like duckweed, drifting with the flow. Lin Hai hugged Lantwei's waist and asked curiously, why are you so sad all of a sudden? Lantwei shook her head and said, I will go back tomorrow. I am a weak woman and not suitable for sailing on the sea for a long time. Lin Hai couldn't help but ask, so, you're leaving tomorrow? Lantwei nodded and said, we were originally going to take Captain Marine's ship, but I didn't expect him to be that kind of person. Haha. Lin Hai let Lantwei lean his head on his shoulder and said, let's not talk about him, okay? Lantwei chuckled and said, okay. Ahem. Lin Hai said, it's windy outside, shall we go back inside the boat? Lantwei looked at Lin Hai playfully, then followed Lin Hai into the boat. Lantwei felt Lin Hai's mischievous arm and laughed, stop it, I'm ticklish. Lin Hai smiled and said, since you are ticklish, I can help you. It will stop itching in a while. Ah, bad guy. The sea breeze was still blowing, and the occasional quarrels among the chefs could be heard from the restaurant on the sea. The sound of the waves coming from the restless boat of Lin Hai lingered for a long time. The next day, the morning sun shone across the sea level, and the restaurant on the sea gradually became lively. When Lin Hai woke up, Lantwei had disappeared, as if last night was just a dream, which made Lin Hai feel a little lost. But for the sake of his great dream, Lin Hai can't stay where he is, especially the one in the Kingdom of Daughters. As soon as he stepped into the restaurant on the sea, Usopp ran over jealously and asked, Lin Hai, how did you sleep last night? Seeing Nami looking at him with amusement, Lin Hai quickly played dumb and said, last night? You dare to mention last night to me? I was drunk and you didn't take me back, so I was blown by the sea breeze all night. Ah! Look, I might have caught a cold. Zoro rolled his eyes, really? Lin Hai said angrily, what do you mean? You want to fight, UBD. Zoro pretended to draw his sword, come on, who's afraid of who? Nami held her forehead, that's enough, let's go eat together. Lin Hai quickly flattered Nami and said, you are still so gentle in the morning. Nami was very surprised and almost laughed out loud. Is there anyone in this world who would say that he is gentle? But Nami thought about how intimate Lin Hai was with that beautiful woman yesterday, so she joked, you should just talk to that woman. Usopp said at the right moment, I wonder how long Luffy will stay here. Hey? Who's calling me? Oh, it's Usopp. Luffy immediately cried when he saw Lin Hai and his group walking into the restaurant. Lin Hai looked up and asked, Luffy, how long are you going to stay here? Luffy pouted cried, that depends on when that old man is willing to let me go. As soon as Luffy finished speaking, a shadow ran in front of Nami. Who else could it be but Sanji? Sanji said enthusiastically, good morning, Ms. Nami. Do you need anything to eat? I'll make the arrangements privately. Your food will be free. After saying that, Sanji's expression changed in an instant, and he said to Lin Hai and the others, you must pay in full. Nami smiled and said, Arigato, Mr. Sanji. Sanji immediately said to Nami with red eyes, Hi, you're welcome Miss Nami. Lin Hai pointed at Sanji and asked Patty, who beat up a Jin yesterday, Hey, Mr. Chef, how come there is such a strange creature in your restaurant? You should take him to see a doctor. Before he could finish his words, Sanji kicked over, but this speed, in front of Lin Hai, was just one word, slow. Lin Hai easily blocked Sanji's kick with his hand. At this time, everyone around couldn't help laughing. Zoro, ha ha ha, Sir Chef, kick him to death. Patty covered his mouth and laughed, Sanji, come back soon, I'll take you to see a doctor, ha ha ha. Sanji stared at Lin Hai with a frown on his face and said, UBD. Lin Hai laughed and said, your legs are not strong enough. Sanji, what did you say? Nami quickly advised, Mr. Sanji, can you please stop fighting for my sake? Sanji's expression changed in an instant, his eyes turned red and he said, yes, Ms. Nami. Looking at Sanji like this, Lin Hai knew that this guy was definitely sick. Although Lin Hai would also fawn on beautiful women, the nature was different. Lin Hai's was purposeful, Sanji's was instinctive. Well, that's the difference, one is controlled, one is not, alas, how sad is Sanji. Lin Hai was in a good mood and didn't bother to argue with Sanji, because Lin Hai experienced the feeling of being in a dream last night. Soon, everyone sat down at the dining table, and Zoro started ordering wine. Lin Hai was speechless. You bad boy, you only know how to drink every day, be careful of alcohol poisoning. Waiter, bring a bottle of wine. Zoro's face darkened. This guy still deserves a beating. Gradually, the restaurant became lively, but mixed in with the noise was a voice of fear, Chef Jafu, it's bad, Krieg is here. As soon as the name Krieg was heard, the restaurant suddenly became quiet and everyone instinctively looked towards the door. I saw that the departed Ajin was helping a tall man wearing golden armor into the restaurant. Chapter 30. No way, it really is the great pirates Krieg. What is he doing here? I heard that he and his several thousand men went to the Grand Line. Could the rumor be false? That's not what we're concerned about now, okay? What on earth does he want to do here? Ignoring the discussions around him, Ajin helped Krieg walk into the restaurant. As the captain of the largest pirates group in East Blue came to the restaurant at sea, the restaurant's chef Zeph naturally went up to him and asked him about his purpose. Krieg said to Jafu in a friendly manner, I came here just to eat, nothing else. When guests are hungry, it is Sanji's duty as a chef to feed them. Just as Sanji was about to go cook, the waiter Patty stopped him and said, Are you stupid? He is notorious and famous for going back on his word. Do you believe him? Sanji took a deep puff of his cigarette, Kaido, so what? I just know that someone is hungry, and as a chef, I should give him food. Patty stopped him, what if he gets full and robs our restaurant? But Sanji insisted, we'll talk about it when the time comes. We are chefs at a restaurant on the sea. Luffy's eyes lit up immediately and he sighed, no wonder I like him so much, Sanji is such a good cook. Lin Hai was speechless, he has a problem with his brain, how come you also have a problem with your brain? Because the restaurant was quiet, the conversation between Lin Hai and Luffy was clearly heard by everyone. Sanji, who was not far away, looked at Lin Hai and asked, who do you say has a problem with his brain? Lin Hai stood up and said expressionlessly, I said you have a problem with your brain. Sanji retorted, is there anything wrong with giving food to someone who is hungry? Do you know how it feels to be starving to death? Lin Hai sneered, so you're going to give him food? And then let him eat his fill before you go and rob others. Sanji pondered for a moment, then Kaido, I'm just a cook. It's my duty to give food to hungry people. The rest has nothing to do with me. Luffy's eyes lit up and he said, so cool, Sanji, I must have you as my partner, ha 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 ha. It's irrelevant? What a great sentence. Lin Hai was a little annoyed, but then he realized that the people here didn't seem to have proper schooling and legal awareness. If in the future, Sanji's behavior would obviously be legally responsible, and anyone would have the right to stop him, but in this world, Lin Hai really didn't know what to say. Finally, Lin Hai said to Kaido who was unhappy, forget it, I don't care. If someone dies at the hands of Krieg later, it depends on whether you can take responsibility. For a moment, the restaurant fell silent again, and everyone couldn't help but look thoughtful. After a while, Zeph and Sanji went to cook for Krieg. Lin Hai, who was sitting at the dining table, couldn't help but frown. He didn't want to persuade them. He really wanted to charge these two idiots with a crime of endangering public safety. And the circumstances were very serious. Lin Hai really didn't understand what was going on in these people's minds. Was it faith or selfishness? Or did they think it was cool to do so? But don't forget that beliefs are not always right. By the way, Lin Hai seems to have never read the legal knowledge of this world. The pirates' world is indeed a world that is totally out of place. If someone like Krieg is recognized in the future, it will be too late for everyone to call the police. Lin Hai's displeasure was written all over his face. Nami said with a smile, "Aren't you very powerful? Even if Krieg wants to take action, don't we still have you guys?" Luffy smiled and said, "That's right, don't worry Lin Hai, you guy. Go away." Lin Hai said unhappily, "I'm very upset, ignore me." "Luffy, you're not doing this because he doesn't cook for you. Stinky straw hat, I'm going to strangle you to death." Soon, Lin Hai and Luffy started fighting. Nami covered her mouth and chuckled, "What a pair of idiots." Zoro looked at Lin Hai and Luffy with a frown on his face. These two people were really speechless. At this moment, there was a sudden rumbling sound not far away. It turned out that Krieg, who had just finished his meal, punched Sanji and knocked him away. Lin Hai exhaled, with a look of surprise on his face, "Good fight. If you don't listen to me, die in front of me." Zoro asked, "What we were worried about has happened. Should we take action?" Luffy adjusted his hat and said, "Let's take a look at the situation first." Lin Hai also said, "Don't count on me to do anything, except for Nami of course." Then, Lin Hai put his arm around Nami's waist and said, "I will be by your side to protect you. Even if the end of the world comes, don't worry. We can find a cave to hide." Nami turned around and rolled her eyes at Lin Hai without replying. Nami then realized that when had she ever enjoyed being hugged like this? At this moment, Lin Hai was stunned. Krieg asked Jafu to cook food for 100 people. Jafu really did as Krieg asked and gave him food for 100 people. Lin Hai couldn't help but said to Nami, "Nami, don't be so stupid in the future." After saying that, Lin Hai secretly kissed her on the ear, causing Nami to blush. Anyone who is not a fool knows that there will be a big fight in the restaurant. As for Lin Hai, he is sure that he will not help, because those who want to die should die quickly. Chapter 31. Krieg went out with the 100 servings of food that Zeph had given him. The atmosphere in the restaurant was a little depressing. Sanji comforted them, "What are you afraid of? If they dare to come later, we will beat them away. What's the point of regretting now? Even the chef did that. As restaurant employees, we have no choice but to unite and fight off the invading pirates." Patty agreed, "There's nothing to be afraid of the Krieg pirates. We are the skilled chefs of the sea restaurant." Ouch! "Let's do it, guys. Whoa! Let's show those guys how good our sea restaurant chefs are." Luffy shouted excitedly, and me, ha 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 ha. I almost forgot, Luffy is also an employee of the restaurant. Lin Hai said to Nami next to him, "Nami, stand next to me later, I will ensure your safety." Usopp quickly grabbed Lin Hai's arm and said, "Hey, Lin Hai, there's me too. You need me to protect you too." Lin Hai was speechless, "Didn't you say you wanted to be a brave sea warrior? Okay. Zoro, what about you? I can protect you too, call me brother and let me hear it." Zoro's eyelids jumped, "UBD, I don't want your protection. But I always feel that something is going to happen, so you all should be careful." Before he could finish his words, a loud noise was heard outside. What happened? Why is the restaurant shaking so violently? Is it a tsunami? Don't ask so many questions, just go outside and see what's going on. It turned out that Krieg was giving food to his men and was about to seize the restaurant on the sea when Krieg's ship was split in two by a sword. Faced with this kind of scene and a force that had never been seen before, everyone couldn't help but feel a little panicked, because how could such a big ship suddenly split into two? What happened to Krieg's ship? Why did it suddenly become like this? Look, the cut is so smooth, was it cut open by someone? What a joke! How could such a big ship be split apart by someone? Hey, now is not the time to worry about this, right? You bastards, come with me and lower the planks. Yes, that's right. A wave that big will submerge the restaurant. On Lin Hai's side, Nami asked, "Lin Hai, if it were you, could you do it? Lin Hai said with a smile, of course, don't you know my ability? Usopp remembered the high cliffs at the coast of his hometown and said angrily, Lin Hai, what did you do to my hometown, UBD? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, let's not talk about this for now. Look at the distance, there is a person there. Usopp said with amusement, you must be joking, ah, it really happened. Zoro stepped forward excitedly, muttering, it's him, it's him, it's him. Luffy asked in confusion, who is it? Lin Hai joked, does he owe you a lot of money? You are so happy. Zoro ignored the people beside him, swallowed, and explained, I went out to sea to find him. He is the world's #1 swordsman, Joracle my hawk, the man known to the world as Hawkeye. The world's #1 swordsman, my hawk. Nami turned to Lin Hai and asked, if it were you, what would happen if you fought him? Lin Hai is not a rookie like Zoro. Hawkeye can stand at the top of the world's kendo, not only because he is the best in swordsmanship. His observation haki, armament haki, physical fitness, speed and strength, combat experience, etc. are all among the best in the world. Lin Hai is not confident enough to compete with Hawkeye. Lin Hai explained, if I fight him to the death, he will kill me in seconds. Nami exclaimed, really? Aren't you very confident? How can you say something like that? It's totally unlike you. Luffy turned around and asked, Lin Hai, is the gap between you and him really that big? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, how many years have they been out there, and how many things have they experienced? No matter what aspect, how can we, the fledgling pirates, compare to them? Usopp said in disbelief, you don't think too little of yourself, do you? Lin Hai warned, if you want to climb to the top, you must first recognize your own strength and understand the power of the world's top. Only in this way can you make progress. Damn, I'm not your teacher, go away. Luffy pouted, Lin Hai, you stingy. After the few of them chatted for a while, they saw a small boat with a unique shape appear after the smoke from the waves in the distance dissipated. It looked like a coffin board. There were candles lit on the boat, emitting green flames. Everything seemed so weird and alternative. There was a man sitting on the boat, with a short beard, a black hat with white fur, a burgundy-patterned shirt, a black windbreaker, white trousers and black boots. There was a cross hanging on his chest and a long knife on his back. At this moment, he was sitting there with his legs crossed, his hands on his legs, his head down, giving people a strong sense of depression. In due course, a crew from the Creek Pirates group broke the depression. UBD, how did we offend you? That's right, I followed him all the way from Grand Line to here. Hawkeye glanced at the person who asked the question calmly, and Kaido simply said, I'm just bored, just killing time. What kind of reason is this? You're bored so you start hacking at other people's ships, and then you're not satisfied and chase them from the Grand Line back to the starting point of the voyage? Krieg's eyes twitched, and he was filled with anger. His ambition to dominate the Grand Line was shattered by this absurd reason. Now, everything is back to square one. Krieg couldn't stand it anymore, so he hinted to the sniper on his ship. The sniper was very smart, so he took out his double guns and shot at Hawkeye. Bang bang! A burst of gunfire rang out. Hawkeye pulled out the black knife from his back, and with those simple movements, he neutralized the 2 bullets that were shot at him. The sniper rubbed his eyes in disbelief and muttered, how is this possible? I clearly aimed. At this time, Zoro had already taken off the silk scarf tied around his arm and tied it around his head, and stepped forward to explain, it was dissolved by his knife. The sniper asked, who are you? Zoro didn't answer him, but walked towards Hawkeye. On the other side, Nami worriedly asked, didn't you say that guy was so powerful? Why did you let Zoro challenge him? Luffy held up his hat and explained, that's Zoro's dream. Why should we stop him? Lin Hai nodded and said, Nami, don't worry. Think about it, if Zoro backed down in front of Hawkeye, how could he move forward towards his goal of becoming the world's #1 swordsman? So, you should congratulate him. What do you mean by world #1? Nami shook her head and said, what a bunch of boring guys. I don't care about you anymore. Usopp next to him swallowed and suddenly realized that he seemed to be on an incredible ship. At the right time, Lin Hai pulled Nami to a place and said, you guys stay here, don't run around. Nami asked in confusion, are you going to challenge Hawkeye too? Lin Hai shook his head and gave Nami a smile. How could he, Lin Hai, be so ignorant as to challenge Hawkeye? He just wanted to show off. Chapter 32. Who is he? 3 Knives. I remember now, he is the famous bounty hunter of East Blue, Roronoa. Zoro. So he is Roronoa. Zoro, who do you think will win? Zoro ignored the whispers of the people around him and drew his sword and pointed it at Hawkeye. I've never seen such a soft sword. Hawkeye said calmly, not all hard knives are powerful. Zoro asked, did you cut this ship with that knife? Hawkeye cried, that's right. Hearing Hawkeye's answer, everyone couldn't help swallowing. Zoro said, I see. You are truly the strongest. I went out to sea to find you. Hawkeye asked in confusion, what is your goal? Zoro grinned and said, the strongest. Hawkeye snorted coldly, stupid guy. Zoro asked, you have lots of free time, right? Let's have a competition. Hawkeye jumped and stood next to Zoro, saying disdainfully, humph, you pathetic weakling. If you were truly a first-rate swordsman, you should have understood the difference in strength between us before fighting me. You actually dared to draw your sword against me. Should I say you are ignorant or courageous? Tisk tisk tisk. A sudden sound rang out, who else could it be if not Lin Hai? Everyone looked at Lin Hai, and saw that Lin Hai was holding a very beautiful sword in his hand. Lin Hai drew out his sword, swung it in a sword dance and said, I heard that you are the best swordsman in the world. I know you are very good, but if I don't have the courage to challenge you, how can I become the best swordsman? Hawkeye turned around and asked, who are you? Are you here to challenge me too? No. Lin Hai shook his head and said, my name is Hwasya.d. Lin Hai. Although I can't beat you, I have a few words to say. Seeing everyone looking at him, Lin Hai was delighted, then he raised his sword and introduced it. This sword is called Gao Feng, it is 1.33 meters long and weighs 8.32 pounds. It is made of ice from outer space. It can blow hair and kill chickens and sheep. Anyway, this sword is the strongest in my heart. Ding, congratulations to the host for winning a flirtatious reward, ! Please note that once this slash is used, it needs to cool down for a month, and the host will also have some side effects, so please use it at your discretion. What is this? Lin Hai doesn't have time to check it out. Seeing Hawkeye staring at him, a drop of cold sweat flowed down Lin Hai's forehead. Why didn't he hold his teeth just now? If those swordsmen knew that I used swords to kill chickens and sheep, would they become public enemies in the swordsman world? At the right moment, Hawkeye asked, are you here to amuse me? Do you know the consequences? Lin Hai quickly shook his head and said, how dare I? I'm just trying to clear the name of my sword. Sorry, you guys continue. Sure enough, Hawkeye was very easy to talk to. After Hawkeye turned his head to look at Zoro, Lin Hai quickly dodged and quickly checked out the so-called space slash. Space slashing is different from previous space cutting, and the way of taking out the knife is also different. To hold the knife, you need to make a fist, put your middle finger and index finger in front of your chest, like chanting a spell, and then communicate with your mind. A space the size of a bowl or plate will appear on the left, and Gao Feng will slowly come out from there. Oh my god, so handsome. This slash will ignore the opponent's haki, just slash. It is different from the slash in the space field. The slash in the space field cannot hurt the opponent with stronger armament haki. However, the space slash also has its disadvantages, and people can avoid it. Before Lin Hai could continue exploring, the angry Luffy ejected and attacked Hawkeye. It turns out that Zoro had been chopped into the sea. Hawkeye glanced at Luffy and explained, don't worry, he's not dead, he just fainted. After saying that, Hawkeye turned to look at Zoro who was picked up, and said, see yourself clearly, understand the world, and then become stronger, surpass me, Roronoa. Zoro. No matter how many years in the future, I will be waiting for your challenge at this strongest position. Zoro pulled out his only remaining sword and shouted to the sky, Luffy, I won't lose again until I defeat him. Do you have any objections? King of Pirates. Luffy laughed, hi ha ha ha. No. Hawkeye had noticed Luffy a long time ago. That straw hat should have been left with him by his good friend Shanks, right? Hawkeye said, it's harder to become the king of pirates than to surpass me. Luffy stuck out his tongue and said, I don't care. I will be the king of pirates. Hawkeye raised his lips and was about to go back, but Creek on the side didn't intend to let Hawkeye go. After all, his pirates were chopped to pieces by Hawkeye. Krieg stepped forward and said to Hawkeye, "Hawkeye, we haven't resolved our issue yet. Are you planning to leave now?" Hawkeye said calmly, "I've had enough fun and I'm going home to sleep." Krieg took out his weapon and sneered, "Before you go back, you must die once." Krieg fired all the bullets he was armed with, and suddenly, smoke rose up from where Hawkeye was. When the smoke cleared, Hawkeye had disappeared without a trace. Tisk. Krieg couldn't find Hawkeye, so he turned to his crew and said, "What are you doing? Don't forget our goal, to seize the Flirty restaurant on the sea." "Oh, leave it to us, Admiral Krieg. Chief Krieg is the strongest. Even Hawkeye doesn't dare to fight him. Ha ha ha. Hurry up and seize the restaurant on the sea, then the food problem will be solved. Then Krieg will definitely become the king of pirates." At this time, Luffy jumped onto the railing beside the ship and asked the owner of the restaurant, "Zeph, if I drive them away, will you not need me to work for you anymore?" Jafu smiled and said, "Sure, as long as you can do it." Without waiting for Luffy to make a move, Lin Hai has already started his own move. After all, Lin Hai also wanted to become a strong man, so that he could ride a horse on the sea, right? The tenderness of that night is still lingering in my mind. Therefore, under safe circumstances, Lin Hai must hurry up and make the best use of the opportunity, not letting go of any chance. So, Lin Hai has changed into a new outfit, which is a strange outfit. Everyone was once again attracted by Lin Hai's unique outfit. Chapter 33. Everyone looked over and saw Lin Hai on the deck, with long flowing hair, standing alone in the wind, with a face as handsome as a jade, eyes as bright as stars, and a nose as red as a hanging gall bladder. The long dress rustled in the sea breeze. At this moment, Lin Hai looked like a fairy, driving thousands of girls crazy. Everyone couldn't help swallowing their saliva, and Usopp was the first to exclaim, "Lin Hai, are you an immortal?" Si Gao Yi. Nami stared blankly at Lin Hai's profile. "Is Lin Hai really that handsome? Oh, I can't help myself." No matter whether it was the restaurant staff or the crew of the Krieg pirates, they were reluctant to take their eyes off Lin Hai, as if they had forgotten what they were doing. Sanji on the side looked at Lin Hai's clothes and felt that they were somewhat familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen them. At this moment, Luffy couldn't help it. He ran to Lin Hai with sweat all over his head and his eyes flashing brighter than titanium alloy dog eyes, exclaiming, "So handsome, so handsome." Excited Luffy kept looking Lin Hai up and down. Lin Hai's hair didn't seem to be that long, right? So, Luffy grabbed. The scene suddenly became awkward. Lin Hai's long hair was bought from the system with Feng Shao coins, and the foundation on his face, otherwise how could his face be as ugly as a piece of jade? And this dress was actually made by Lin Hai by dismantling the curtains in Sanji's room, because the clothes from the system were too expensive. At this moment, Lin Hai's wig was being held in Luffy's hand, and the two of them stared at each other for a moment. "Nani? What? It turns out to be fake. I thought that guy was an immortal." "That's what I said. Immortals are just legends. How can there be real immortals? They are just legends." The noise of a group of people finally brought Lin Hai back to reality. Lin Hai glared at Luffy, took the wig from his hand and put it back on, then Lin Hai said, "Can you please stop making trouble?" Luffy nodded and said, "You have to dress me up later. I want this look too. It's so cool." Lin Hai waved his hand and said, "Okay, go aside." After readjusting his posture, Lin Hai performed another sword move and said, "I have a sword that can move mountains, overturn the sea, can. Oops, I can't remember what Usopp said before, and Lin Hai is suddenly stuck. Can. But what? Is he lying to us again? Listening to other people's complaints, Lin Hai's cheeks rarely turned red, and he turned around and asked Usopp awkwardly, "Usopp, what do you say next?" "Hey." Usopp was stunned by kaido, "Break the mountains and rivers, establish the world." Lin Hai remembered and said in surprise, "Broken mountains and rivers, established the world, ah. Ha ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. It turns out this guy was just pretending. Ha ha ha, this guy is so funny. He doesn't even know how to speak his own words and actually comes out to embarrass himself. Hey, you idiot, do you want me to teach you how to say it?" Sanji on the side took a puff of his cigarette and asked Luffy, "Are all these weirdos on your ship?" Lin Hai's face flushed red as she heard the voice. "Damn, she finally came up with such a genius idea. She spent so much money on wigs, foundation, and makeup technology. After paying so much, what's the result? The result was that he was laughed at by a group of people. Lin Hai, who was furious, didn't care. He decided to let these bastards see what the power of a sword was. Lin Hai was so angry that she took off her wig and threw it to the ground, then tore off her long dress and threw it aside. Sanji saw the unique pattern on the clothes and immediately exclaimed, Lin Hai, UBD actually took down my curtains. Is he angry because of shame? He looks very angry. What is he planning to do? Why do I always have a bad feeling? I had a bad feeling, and I was right. At this moment, Lin Hai on the deck performed the space move rewarded by the system. Lin Hai clenched his fist with one hand, with his index and middle fingers level with his chin, as if he was chanting some spell. After a while, a transparent space Uzumaki appeared on the left side of Lin Hai, and a knife slowly stretched out from there. That was Gao Feng. What does he want to do? Everyone had this thought at this moment. Lin Hai held the hilt of the knife, then raised his head and said, cut the sea with one sword. Clang. Everyone only felt some sword sounds ringing in their ears, and a flash of light made the surroundings a little dimmer. Krieg's crew and the restaurant staff were all frozen in place, and then they turned their heads mechanically to look at Lin Hai's sword that was slashing upwards from the bottom. Everyone was horrified to find that the sea had been split apart. This sword strike was much more terrifying than the one Hawkeye had just used. Krieg on the side no longer cared about his big ship that was broken into 4 sections. Everyone come and help, a big Uzumaki appeared in the sea. We don't have time to argue. If we don't stabilize the ship, we will all be buried in the sea. Oh my god, that guy is so scary, so terrible. What is Lin Hai doing at this time? After performing that move, because the ability of the space fruit was not fully developed, he overexerted himself. As a result, Lin Hai fainted. When Lin Hai lost his last bit of consciousness, he couldn't help but complain in his heart, flirting system, you are not strong enough. When Lin Hai woke up, he saw Nami lying beside the bed. What was going on? What about the Krieg pirates? What about Luffy and the others? Lin Hai's actions woke up Nami, who was resting. Seeing that Lin Hai was fine, Nami rolled her eyes, then twisted Lin Hai's ear and taught him a lesson, UBD are really messing around. Do you know that you almost killed all of us? I know I was wrong. Lin Hai begged for mercy, let go, it hurts. After Nami let go, Lin Hai realized that the surroundings were so quiet, with the occasional sound of seagulls outside. This feeling seemed really good. However, after he fainted, he still wanted to know how things developed. So Lin Hai held Nami's hand and asked, are Luffy and the others okay? Chapter 34. Nami rolled her eyes at Lin Hai and explained, they are fine. After you fell unconscious, Luffy had a fight with that Krieg, but Krieg lost. I don't know what they are doing now. Lin Hai always felt that he had slept for a long time, and asked curiously, how long have I been unconscious? Nami cried, 3 days. 3 days. Lin Hai exclaimed, and then muttered, no way, how could he be unconscious for so long? Lin Hai reacted and couldn't help but said, Nami, I'm sorry, it took so long. I was originally planning to go to your hometown. Nami shook her head and said, after so many years, do you still care about these few days? But you are really worrying. Will you do this again and fall into a coma again? Lin Hai sat up, pulled Nami into his arms and shook his head, no, it's my first time using this move. I'm not skilled enough and I used too much force. Ha ha ha. Nami said coquettishly, why do you always take advantage of others? Lin Hai ignored Nami's words and said, Nami, you should trust us more, you will be free soon. Freedom. Nami looked up at Lin Hai curiously. Lin Hai nodded and said, after defeating Arlong, you can do what you like. Nami looked at Lin Hai excitedly and asked uncertainly, will there really be such a day? Lin Hai cried, don't worry, that day will come soon. Before Lin Hai could continue, an angry voice suddenly sounded outside, Lin Hai, UBD, let go of Miss Nami. When Nami heard the voice, she quickly came out of Lin Hai's arms, and Lin Hai glared at Sanji angrily. It turned out that Sanji brought food to Nami. Lin Hai ignored Sanji's murderous look, took the food he was going to give to Nami from his hand, and started eating it by himself. Sanji got even angrier, UBD, this is not for you to eat. Nami asked, Sanji, where are Luffy and the others? Sanji's eyes immediately turned into hearts and he said, they are outside, Ms. Nami. Soon, Luffy and the others came in. Luffy laughed loudly, Lin Hai, you are no good. You didn't fight anyone, but you were unconscious for 3 days. You are a weakling. It's over. How did Luffy learn my own words? But Lin Hai was in no mood to argue with them. He saw Zoro wrapped in gauze not far away. How casual. Lin Hai asked in confusion, Zoro, is this how you treat this wound? Hey. Zoro asked in confusion, what's the problem? Lin Hai looked at Zoro Kaido with his fish eyes, this is a big problem. As he spoke, Lin Hai turned to look at Sanji and asked, do you have high concentration alcohol here? Sanji asked, yes, I do. What do you want it for? Lin Hai said with a smile, treat Zoro's wound, there's still bloodline flowing out of his wound. Don't you have a doctor here? Sanji cried, yes, there was, but he ran away. Zoro on the side waved his hand and said, just get some sleep and it will be fine. Lin Hai exclaimed, you shameless BD, if your wound gets infected, it will rot, get inflamed and cause a high fever. I want to ask you if you are okay. Luffy asked in confusion, is it that serious? What a bunch of illiterate people. Lin Hai said depressedly, just treat me as if I said nothing. I'm starving to death. At the right moment Luffy said, by the way, Sanji has agreed to join our pirates group. We now have 6 companions. Lin Hai glanced at Sanji and said indifferently, oh. Sanji said angrily, what kind of reaction is that? Lin Hai was speechless, what reaction do you want me to have? Sanji struck a pose and said smugly, shouldn't you feel happy? A genius like me being your partner. Lin Hai interrupted, Sanji. Sanji asked in confusion, Lin Hai said seriously, you should take medicine. Pucci, ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Zoro added fuel to the fire, Sanji, you should take your medicine. Sanji, with his face flushed red, shouted, Lin Hai. I'm going to kill you. After taking care of their respective affairs, Sanji said goodbye to the waiter at the sea restaurant, and everyone boarded the Going Merry. Cheers, and welcome our new partner Sanji to join us. Hey, Zoro, your injury is serious, you can't drink. Stop talking nonsense, just drink a little and it'll be fine. After everyone had some fun, Luffy and Usopp ran over to Lin Hai, and Luffy asked, Lin Hai, can you perform that move you used that day again? What was it called? Usopp cried, it looks like a space slash or something, it's so cool. Luffy nodded and said, yes, let us see it again. After saying that, Luffy imitated the posture of Lin Hai summoning Gao Feng's sword that day. Sanji on the other side kicked Luffy away, Lin Hai, don't listen to them. If a huge wave of that scale is attracted again, I doubt whether we can reach Nami's hometown, right, beautiful Nami-san. As quick as it came, it went as quickly as it came. Sanji ran to Nami again to flatter her. At this time, Zoro stepped forward and said, Lin Hai, how did you do that move? Is the spatial ability that powerful? Lin Hai shook his head and said, I'm not sure either, but the space fruit is awesome, awesome, awesome. UBD. Zoro said speechlessly, can I see your sword? Lin Hai directly took out Gao Feng from the space and threw it to Zoro, then walked to Nami and asked, how long will it take from here to your side? Nami cried, it'll take more than a day, but we should make a plan on how to defeat the Arlong pirates. Luffy interrupted, beat him up. Zoro, cut him. Sanji, kick him away. Lin Hai, kill it. Everyone looked at Usopp, who stammered, I'm cheering you on. Nami slapped her head and said, I'm telling you guys, the Arlong pirates are not simple, they are completely different from the pirates we met before, you guys. Lin Hai interrupted, what are you afraid of? If I glare at them, even if they don't faint, I'll make them lie down obediently. Luffy quickly stopped him, Lin Hai, you can't use that move. I have to beat Arlong to the ground. Lin Hai said depressedly, okay, I'll give it to you, okay. Duan. Nami, who was interrupted, angrily hit Lin Hai and Luffy respectively, and then explained, the arm strength of fish people is naturally more than 10 times greater than that of humans. Do you know what this means? Not to mention that Arlong. Lin Hai stood up speechlessly, rolled his eyes at Nami, and said jokingly, Luffy is the man who is going to be the king of pirates. Luffy's eyes lit up and he nodded, I am the man who will become the king of pirates, a mere hour-long plan. Sanji's eyes instantly turned into peach blossoms, angry Nami is also so beautiful. Zoro on the side couldn't help but complain, perverted chef. Sanji glared, what did you say? Zoro, colored shrine. Sanji, you guys have become a lot more irritable since you were abused once. Zoro, what did you say? Sanji, you wanna fight? Nami on the side slapped his forehead and said, it's over, it's over. How did the pirates become like this? Chapter 35. Looking at Nami drawing circles in the corner of the deck, Lin Hai realized that she couldn't stimulate her anymore, otherwise something serious would happen. Ahem. Lin Hai said, everyone, stop making trouble. We really need to discuss how to make a plan after arriving at Kokozia village. Luffy said, why don't we just go to Arlong? If we defeat him, won't all the problems be solved? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, what about the murlocs in other places? What if they are desperate and hurt the villagers? Nami instantly perked up, and hurried to Lin Hai and asked, do you have any solution? Lin Hai said with a smile, if I have a solution, do we still need to discuss it? Luffy pouted and said, what? There's nothing you can do about it. Sanji bit his cigarette and muttered, this is indeed a problem. If those fishmen hold the villagers hostage or hurt them, Miss Nami will definitely be sad. Before he finished speaking, Lin Hai took the cigarette from Sanji's pocket and lit one quickly. Ahem. Lin Hai was choked and said speechlessly, what kind of cigarette is this? Sanji said angrily, UBD, you can't smoke but you took the whole pack. Lin Hai retorted, I just can't get used to the air in this world, is that okay? Duan. Nami put her hands on her hips and said angrily, everyone is like this. After a while, Lin Hai said, how about this, Nami and Luffy go to the village and make a scene, and lure the fishmen in the corners to the Arlong base. Should I and the others go directly to the Arlong base to provoke them, and when those fishmen scattered in other places come back, we will wipe them out in one fell swoop. Sanji sat up and nodded, that's an idea. With Luffy's troublemaking personality, he's perfect for this. Luffy said in disgust, why let me be with Nami? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, do you know where those fishmen are located? Luffy shook his head decisively, I don't know. Lin Hai spread his hands, isn't that enough? And. As he said that, Lin Hai ran to Zoro's side, shook his shoulders and said speechlessly, can you say something? Who are you trying to show off to with your cool attitude all day long? Ah, it hurts, it hurts. Zoro said angrily, Lin Hai, UBD, let go, believe it or not, I will chop you off. Lin Hai poked Zoro's wound gently with his hand, really? Ah. Zoro said with cold sweat on his forehead, UBD. Ha ha ha. Now that things have been settled, everyone can't help but feel a little relieved. At this time, Sanji ran to Lin Hai and said, Lin Hai, can you design a look for me later? Just the same style as you had that day. Luffy, who was very good at hearing, also came over and said noisily, Lin Hai, I want one too. Lin Hai said depressedly, these are all innate, haven't you heard a saying? Zoro on the side asked in confusion, what? Lin Hai looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. Lin Hai, this guy, is doing this again. Everyone can't help but frown, but that look is really attractive. At this time, Lin Hai said, a monkey in a human costume. Nami asked, what do you mean? Lin Hai said slowly, in other words, a monkey is a monkey. Even if it puts on clothes, it can't change. Damn, what are you doing? Don't hit my face. Sanji, why are you so irritating? Luffy, Lin Hai, you actually called me a monkey. Zoro, ha ha ha, cough cough cough, beat him up hard. On the deck, Luffy yelled in boredom, ah, Nami, how long will it take? This is so boring. Nami looked at the direction, kaido, we'll be there almost tomorrow. Nani? Luffy lay weakly on the deck. Nami asked in confusion, why don't you go play with Lin Hai and the others? Usopp, who was making weapons, pointed to a secluded place and explained, Lin Hai and Zoro are sleeping over there. At this time, Sanji came out of the kitchen and said, dinner is ready. Luffy suddenly became energetic, it's time to eat, it's time to eat. Lin Hai, who was in a daze, quickly pulled Zoro up. Zoro asked in confusion, "What are you doing?" Lin Hai was speechless. "If you don't go eat, will there be anything to eat later?" Zoro hurried Kaido, "Hurry up." Lin Hai quickly said, "Wait, something is coming up." Everyone stopped and asked in confusion, "Is there something coming up?" Before everyone could get confused, a fountain suddenly appeared on the sea level, followed by a sea monster as big as a boat, which then stared in the direction of the kitchen. When Nami saw the sea beast, she was stunned. "Isn't this the manatee moo that Arlong and his friends raised?" Usopp said in fear, "What is this thing? It's too big, isn't it?" Zoro wondered, "What does it want to do?" Luffy Kaido, "No matter what it wants to do, if it dares to attack us, we will beat it away." Lin Hai stepped forward and asked, "Do you want to glare at it and make it faint?" Sanji didn't understand what Lin Hai meant by dizzy, and said, "It must be hungry." Luffy said, "So that's what it was planning. I'll beat it to pieces." Sanji kicked Luffy away, "It's just hungry." After saying that, Sanji went back to the kitchen and brought out a piece of meat. Lin Hai was speechless. "Be careful not to be swallowed by it along with your body and flesh." Sanji kicked the sea beast in the chin and exclaimed, "That's really true." Everyone couldn't help but look grim. Luffy's eyes suddenly lit up. "Everyone, why don't we let that sea beast pull the boat?" "Nani?" everyone shouted. Sanji wondered, "How is this possible?" Lin Hai was speechless. "You really mean that?" "I am against this." Luffy asked in confusion, "Why?" Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, "There are too many accidents when letting sea beasts pull the boat. If you are not afraid that the boat will break down, then let it pull it." Usopp quickly stepped forward and echoed, "Don't let it pull the boat, Luffy, you should give up the idea." Lin Hai stepped forward and said, "I'm going to release Conqueror's Haki, do you want to experience it?" Except for Luffy and Zoro who did not object, Nami and Usopp would not dare to experience that kind of pressure again. However, Sanji didn't know and didn't understand what Lin Hai wanted to do. As a result, a powerful, terrifying and irresistible aura came over him, and Sanji felt like he almost blacked out. Sanji reacted and grabbed Lin Hai's collar angrily, "UBD, tell me what kind of monster you are, is this human strength?" Lin Hai slapped Sanji's hand away and said contemptuously, "You are not a human, this is Conqueror's Haki." Sanji asked in confusion, "What is that?" Lin Hai waved his hand and said, "Eat and talk." Chapter 36. Before they knew it, Going Merry entered the vicinity of Kokozia village and was immediately stopped by the men of the Arlong pirates. One of the leading fishermen captains stepped forward and asked, "Nami, welcome back, you must have gained a lot this time, right?" He. These fishmen looked like they deserved a beating, so Luffy and the others kept silent according to their previous agreement. Nami stepped forward and said, "It's okay, where is Arlong?" "The ones behind me are the Straw Hat Pirates. They found a treasure and want to work with the Arlong Pirates. Take us to see him." The captain asked in confusion, "Treasure? Now that they have found it, will they share it with others? Do you have any other purpose?" "Purpose?" Lin Hai stepped forward and pulled the injured Zoro out, explaining, "The one next to me is the pirates hunter Roronoa. Zoro, now a member of our pirates group. He was so badly injured because our pirates group couldn't eat him. I heard from Nami that your Arlong pirates group is awesome and can do anything, so I want to work with him. Hey, take us there quickly, since you can't make the decision anyway, go and inform your captain Arlong that a big deal is coming." The fishmen looked at each other and finally decided to take Luffy and others to see Arlong. The reason for doing this is that the Murloc's naval battles are really awesome, which is not surprising, so this strategy is adopted. After the boat docked, Nami said, "I will go home first and then meet Arlong later." Lin Hai waved his hand and said, "Luffy, you go with Nami." Luffy tried his best not to make any sound, because as soon as he made a sound, the purpose of Lin Hai and others would definitely be exposed. Once the first step is completed, the rest will be easy to solve. As for leaving Arlong to Luffy, Lin Hai said, "Let him dream." Soon, the fishman Kaido who led the way said, "Wait here for a moment, I'll go in and report." Lin Hai just glared at them, making them faint. Usopp exclaimed, "Lin Hai, your power is so convenient, isn't it?" Lin Hai smiled and said, "It's okay, Sanji, aren't you going to make a handsome appearance? Just kick the door down." Zoro taunted, "Perverted cook, this door is quite thick, don't break your leg." Sanji said angrily, what did you say? Lin Hai was speechless, if you don't kick me, I will. Sanji quickly stopped him and said, don't use that ability later, let us play with it first. Lin Hai was speechless, okay, it's up to you. Boom. Arlong and several cotters who were resting on chairs in Arlong Castle were suddenly startled by a loud noise. Arlong looked towards the door and asked in confusion, what happened? Zioba. After the smoke cleared, who else could it be but Lin Hai and the others? Arlong stood up with a serious look, and the other cotters took their positions. Arlong said coldly, who are you? What are you doing here? Wow, Lin Hai, Sanji and Usopp's eyes lit up, while Zoro stood aside, because it was too embarrassing. Lin Hai stood in the middle, Sanji and Usopp stood on the side, and then the three of them imitated the standing posture of the four silver heroes of Jiangnan in the movie Flirting Scholar. We are the three heroes of the East. X3 the three heroes of the East. Arlong turned his head and looked at his companions behind him. Everyone looked confused. Arlong cried, I haven't heard of it. What do you want to do? Of course I want to show off and practice my fighting skills at the same time, otherwise it would just be a matter of staring. However, Lin Hai dared not tell Luffy and the others about these things, otherwise he would be killed by them. At the right time, Lin Hai said, Sanji, you speak. Ahem. Sanji's eyes lit up. It's finally here. Sanji struck a pose, pointed at the sky at a 45-degree angle, and shouted, for world peace, for harmonious life between the sexes, and for people not to be oppressed, today we are here to eliminate you on behalf of freedom. As he spoke, Sanji pointed at Arlong and his gang, cigarette between his hands. Lin Hai stood with Usopp and echoed, for freedom, we will destroy you. A drop of cold sweat dripped down from the tip of Usopp's nose. Zoro's face turned red. Why did he get on this ship in the first place? It was so embarrassing. Arlong looked at the people at the door for a while, and said gloomily, are you here to make fun of me? Very good, you succeeded in angering me. Seeing Arlong about to fight, the black belt quickly stopped Arlong and explained, calm down, if you start fighting, Arlong Paradise will be destroyed. Xiao Ba agreed, yeah, brother Arlong, let us take care of these guys, just give us a few points. Ah, then I'll leave it to you. After saying that, Arlong sat back in his seat. Black Belt and Xiao Ba came forward, and Xiao Ba said, although your ambitions are great, this is Arlong Paradise, and I will not let you destroy it. Great ambitions? Lin Hai nodded and said, of course we have great ambitions. We are not like you stinky fish. You are so brave that you don't stay in the water but come to the land to bully humans. Aren't you afraid of being dried into fish jerky? As soon as he finished speaking, dense drops of water shot towards him like bullets. Lin Hai took this opportunity to train himself. He dodged the attacks one by one, but he was still hit by 2 drops. After all, they were too close together. Sanji, Usopp and Zoro on the other side were all hit. The power was like that of a machine gun, making the 3 of them lose their combat effectiveness instantly. These water droplets were naturally thrown out by Arlong, who was just angered by Lin Hai's words. At this time, Arlong stepped forward with red eyes and said, you lowly humans, what have you done to my compatriots? You can't even withstand a few drops of my water, and you still dare to speak rudely. Lin Hai looked at the people next to him. He didn't help them resist just now, mainly to let them feel the power of the master compared to them. At this time, Lin Hai stepped forward and said contemptuously, low-level human? You are so awesome, you are just a stupid fish, you are only worthy of hiding in a corner and bullying some weak civilians to highlight your self-deceiving vanity. Arlong stared at Lin Hai like he was a dead person, then slowly said, I hope your mouth is still so powerful later. Lin Hai was about to say something when he heard a voice, guess what, rocket launcher. It turned out that Luffy was here. However, Luffy's attack was directly avoided by Arlong, and then Luffy and a minion behind Arlong flew out from the opposite wall. A question popped up in everyone's mind, what is going on? Chapter 37. Boom. There was a noise, and everyone looked and saw a hole in the wall. Except for Lin Hai, Arlong, Zoro, and Sanji who could see clearly what was going on, everyone else was confused. What happened? Just now there seemed to be a shadow flying by. Who was it? Are you an accomplice of those people? Seeing that the Arlong paradise he built was destroyed again, Arlong said in a low voice, these guys, I will kill them all. The black belt quickly hugged Arlong's waist and advised, Arlong, calm down. If you take action, Arlong paradise will really be ruined. Before Arlong could speak, the noise of villagers came from not far away. There was a hint of anger and determination in the noise. Arlong said to the door, let me go, I won't do anything wrong, what are those villagers doing here? At this time, Luffy, who had crashed into the wall, came back again and said simply, well, I was scared to death. Fortunately, that person helped me. He is really a good person. The members of the Arlong pirates looked through the hole in the wall and found that his compatriots were lying on the ground, unconscious. Arlong couldn't help but mutter, you lowly humans, you hurt my compatriots like this. After saying that, Arlong looked at the villagers who were coming aggressively and asked, what are you doing? Aegean, the chief of Kokozia village, stepped forward and said, Arlong, today we are here to defeat you. Lin Hai clapped his hands and said, exactly. How can we, as 7-foot-tall men, be oppressed by these ruthless bandits? Come on, village chief. Nami on the side hit Lin Hai on the head and said angrily, what do you mean? Aren't you going to take action? Lin Hai hugged Nami's waist and said with a smile, don't worry, I know what's going on. Seeing Lin Hai so calm, Nami was not so nervous anymore. After all, when Aegean fought with Arlong, he was defeated in seconds. Sanji, who had recovered, saw Lin Hai hugging Nami again and said angrily, Lin Hai, let go of Miss Nami. Lin Hai turned around and said disdainfully, I just sprinkled water on you, and you're like this, find a hole to hide in. UBD. Arlong's face darkened when he was ignored, and he confirmed, are you planning to resist? The villagers immediately said, yes, we have endured enough. If Nami hadn't held on to the hope of freeing the village all these years, we wouldn't have endured this. Even if I die today, I will not accept the rule of the Arlong pirates. Arlong understood, turned to look at Lin Hai and others, and asked, what is your purpose? Lin Hai pulled the trembling Nami forward and said, I'll kill you, you stinky fish. Arlong's eyes flashed red, Nami, is this what you meant? Nami said in fear, I. Lin Hai was speechless, Nami, why think so much? The revenge for the murder of your mother, being oppressed for 8 years, ask yourself. Nami hesitated for a moment, then turned around and smiled, I'm sorry everyone, I'm not going to give in. What are you talking about? This should have happened a long time ago. Nami, I've made you bear so much over the years. It's really hard for you. We have long been prepared to risk our lives. Nami finally couldn't hold back and burst into tears. Lin Hai took out a cigarette and found that there was no light. His eyes suddenly lit up and he walked to Xiao Ba and asked, hey, can you lend me a light? Ah. Xiao Ba shook his head and said, I don't smoke. If you need a lighter, go ask Xiu. He should have some. Xiao Ba, who had reacted, quickly jumped aside and pointed at Lin Hai, UBD, I won't lend you fire, we are enemies. Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, it's just borrowing a light, you really know how to make a fuss, go and play. Xiao Ba quickly bowed and said, I'm sorry. Lin Hai waved his hand and said, you're welcome. Everyone is stunned. What's wrong with these two guys? Arlong's face darkened and he shouted, Xiao Ba, what are you doing? Xiao Ba reacted and pointed at Lin Hai angrily and said, UBD, I'm going to kill you. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Ba climbed directly into a room and took out 6 knives, pointing at Lin Hai and said, you destroyed Arlong paradise, injured my compatriots, and insulted brother Arlong. I will kill you. Seeing Xiao Ba about to attack, Lin Hai exclaimed, wait, how can you wield 6 knives at the same time? This is terrible, Zoro, save me. Everyone's faces turned black. This guy seemed to be shouting for war and killing just now, but what's the matter with him now? Just this? But Zoro didn't care much. He took 3 swords and walked forward, pointing at Xiao Ba and said, 6 sword style? Interesting. Hachi asked in confusion, you are the pirate's hunter, Roronoa. Zoro. Lin Hai echoed, that's right, I wasn't afraid of you just now. If I took action, I was afraid that I would beat you to death with 1 punch, so why don't you thank me? To everyone's surprise, Xiao Ba bowed again and said, thank you. Everyone fell down. Lin Hai patted Usopp, did you learn that? Usopp shook his head like a rattle, almost doubting his life. Playing around, Arlong stepped forward and looked at Lin Hai and said, "You were able to dodge my water strike just now, so you are qualified to be my opponent." Before he could finish his words, Luffy stepped forward and interrupted, "Your opponent is me." Being interrupted again and again, Arlong asked angrily, "Who are you?" Luffy cried, "Monkey D. Luffy is the man who will become the king of pirates." "King of pirates?" Tisk. Ha ha ha. Arlong laughed, "King pirates? You are such an ignorant lowly human being that I don't know what to say. What is your purpose?" Luffy explained, "You made my navigator cry." Arlong asked in confusion, "Your navigator?" Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, "It's Nami, stupid fish." Arlong couldn't help it, and immediately took action, punching Lin Hai directly, and said angrily, "You lowly human, you insult me again and again." Luffy stepped forward to block Arlong's punch. "Kaido, your opponent is me." Arlong looked at Luffy dangerously and said, "Don't worry, I will kill all of you one by one, including the villagers." Luffy cried, "If you have the ability, just try." The black belt on the side also joined the battle, but was stopped by Sanji. The war began. Lin Hai found that he could only be a slacker on the side, but it was nice to hug Nami. Chapter 38. Because Zoro was seriously injured before, he was at a disadvantage in the duel with Xiao Ba. Nami on the side said worriedly, "Lin Hai, aren't you going to help Zoro?" Lin Hai said with a smile, "You should have more confidence in your companions. This is just the beginning. Zoro wants to become the world's #1 swordsman. If he falls in such a small situation, he might as well go home and sleep." Without waiting for Nami to refute, Zoro took off the silk scarf tied on his arm and tied it on his head. He turned his head and looked at Lin Hai happily, then said, "Octopus, today I will show you what real swordsmanship is. 3-sword style secret technique, tornado." As a result, Xiao Ba was defeated so easily. Lin Hai spat inwardly. Zoro, what a shameless guy. Real swordsmanship? He, Lin Hai, didn't even brag about his own swordsmanship, but he was bragging about the swordsmanship he got from this little thing. "Pa." Nami turned around and asked in confusion, "What are you spitting at?" "Ah ha ha ha." Lin Hai quickly explained, that 6-sword style is really lame, too bad. Suddenly, a bubble shot over and was directly slapped away by Lin Hai. It turned out to be Chu's saliva. Lin Hai exclaimed, "Stinky fish, you are too unhygienic, aren't you? You actually attacked with saliva, so disgusting." Chu's cheeks flushed as she said, "That's not saliva, that's a blister." Lin Hai waved his hand and said, "Whatever you are, Usopp." Usopp asked confusedly, "What's wrong?" Lin Hai said, "I'll leave it to you. Practice hard and I believe you can do it." Usopp was pleasantly surprised, "Can I really? Thank you for your trust." As soon as he finished speaking, Usopp turned and ran. "Nani," everyone shouted. "Chu haha." Chu said disdainfully, "Low-class human, are you so cowardly?" Puff. As soon as Chu finished speaking, he saw a ball of fire shooting towards him. Chu subconsciously used his hand to block it, and then his arm caught fire. Chu exclaimed, "It's going to become a dried fish, it's so hot." Usopp put on his goggles and said with a very proud smile, "Stinky fish, your opponent is me." Everyone's face turned dark. "This guy." Finally, he put out the fire and said angrily, "Stop right there." Usopp ran away quickly. Just when Chu was about to ignore him, he attacked again. Chu was so angry that he chased after Usopp. Lin Hai smiled and said, "Did you see that? You should learn more about this tactic in the future, Nami." Nami shuddered because Lin Hai's hand moved up and touched her. Nami blushed, turned around and said, "Let go." Lin Hai reacted and let go quickly. Why did he forget everything just now? At this time, Sanji's battle with the black belt was over. Sanji's kicking skills were still pretty good and were more than enough to deal with these little rookies. The rest of the battle is between Luffy and Arlong. Arlong was so angry when he saw his compatriots falling one after another that he almost went crazy. Suddenly, Luffy was hit by a punch from Arlong and fell into the sea, so Lin Hai had to take action. With a leap, Lin Hai blocked Arlong who was about to go into the sea. Arlong said gloomily, "Get out of the way." Lin Hai said contemptuously, "Are you an idiot? Sanji, go get Luffy out, it's my turn." Arlong stared at Lin Hai dangerously and said slowly, since you are so eager to die, I will send you off first, shark arrow. What the hell is it flying at this speed? Lin Hai did not intend to kill Arlong in one move, but wanted to exercise his combat experience. Instantly, Lin Hai punched Arlong on the shoulder as he flew over. Boom! Arlong was punched by Lin Hai and thrown into Arlong Castle, which immediately caused a cloud of dust. The villagers immediately exclaimed, "Who is that young man? He is so amazing." "I don't know, I just know that he was brought back by Nami." "Has Arlong been dealt with? By the way, do humans really have this kind of power?" Nami on the side saw Lin Hai knock Arlong away with one punch. This feeling of crushing was completely different from the fight with Luffy and the others just now. Nami knew that Lin Hai was very powerful. After actually seeing this scene, she was immediately surprised. Could she and this village really escape Arlong's rule? Zoro, who was lying on the ground to rest, looked at Lin Hai in surprise. Arlong's strength could be guessed from his water strike just now. He didn't expect that Lin Hai would leave him so far behind. "It seems I need to exercise more in the future." At this time, after the smoke cleared, Arlong was seen holding a machete with a saw-shaped blade. Arlong walked out of the castle he built in anger, and yelled, "You lowly humans, today I will kill you one by one." Lin Hai suddenly pointed to the sky and said, "Look, there are cows flying in the sky." Everyone was attracted by Lin Hai's actions. When they reacted, they tried their best to hold back their laughter as they looked at the furious Arlong. Arlong walked to a place not far from Lin Hai and said in a low voice, "I hope you can still be so eloquent later." Lin Hai was speechless. "If you want to fight, then fight. You talk too much nonsense. It's so noisy." "Ah, Lin Hai, you guy, get out of the way, he is mine." Luffy, who was rescued by Sanji, couldn't help but say when he saw Lin Hai and Arlong confronting each other. Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, "You've already made your debut, now it's my turn." Tisk. Ha ha ha. Arlong laughed angrily, "You lowly humans, come together, today I want." Boom. Before Arlong could finish, Lin Hai punched Arlong into the castle he had built. Lin Hai scratched his ears and pointed in the direction where Arlong flew out, wondering, where did this fish come from? Could it have escaped from the mental hospital? Everyone's eyes twitched. Luffy said angrily, "Lin Hai, didn't you agree to give Arlong to me? How could you do that?" Lin Hai was speechless. "Who told you to be so dishonest every day? You've been practicing for so long, but you can't even beat a fish. You, get out of the way." Before he could finish his words, Arlong rushed over again with his nose from the collapsed area. "Low-class human, there is no way I can be defeated by you, ha 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 ha, prepare to die." Observation Haki had been warned long ago, and until he confirmed that his opponent had lost his combat effectiveness, he, Lin Hai, did not let down his guard. After pushing Luffy away, Lin Hai took advantage of the situation and made a hook shot, kicking Arlong directly in the head as he rushed over. Boom! A big hole suddenly appeared on the site. Before everyone could react, they were startled by the sudden loud noise. Chapter 39. What on earth happened? What's that noise? I seemed to hear Arlong's voice just now. It seemed to be Arlong. Look, there's a big hole ahead. Who made it? When the smoke cleared, only Lin Hai was seen standing in the field, and Luffy was sitting on the ground. At the right time, Luffy reacted and rushed to Lin Hai, angrily saying, "Lin Hai, you BD, Arlong must be done by me." Lin Hai nodded and said, "Okay, I won't do anything." Luffy said in surprise, "Arlong, come out now, I want to beat you to death." Sanji, who was standing nearby, had already seen Arlong fainted in the pit, and quickly reminded him, "Arlong is there, why are you shouting at that building?" Following the direction of Sanji's finger, Luffy saw that Arlong had been defeated. So what to do now? Wake him up and fight him again? Luffy is a little withdrawn. Lin Hai on the side said with evil humor, "Luffy, go fight him, he is right there, go and beat him up." The villagers who reacted were immediately pleasantly surprised. After being oppressed for 8 years, is this nightmare finally over? Pinch me, this is not a dream, right? Is Arlong's nightmare finally over? Who again, we are finally free, ha 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 ha. Don't just enjoy yourselves, hurry up and inform the villagers in other villages. Not far away, Nami couldn't help crying with joy. She could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Perhaps this breath was too long. She felt a little sad in addition to her joy. Wow, Belmere. Lin Hai didn't plan to comfort Nami. This kind of wound can only be healed by herself. At the right moment, the village chief, Aegean, stepped forward, looked at Arlong lying unconscious in the pit, and said, "Everyone, what should we do with Arlong next?" "Village chief, do I need to say this?" "Of course, we should kill him." "Yes, kill him. He has brought us so much pain over the years. Nami should be the one he caused the most pain to everyone, right? Let her deal with it." At the right time, Lin Hai brought Arlong from the big pit directly to the villagers. Seeing Arlong's appearance, Nami became a little agitated. He held the dagger but was afraid to stab it. In the end, Nami dropped the dagger in his hand. Sanji on the side had red hearts in his eyes and spun, "Ms. Nami is not only beautiful, but also so kind. I love you, Miss Nami." Luffy stepped forward and patted Nami on the shoulder and said seriously, "Nami, I agree with your approach. Don't be blinded by hatred." The villagers nearby also began to agree. Lin Hai on the side couldn't help but said, "I object." Everyone looked at Lin Hai in confusion, and Lin Hai walked to Arlong, lifted him up, and said slowly, "I know you are kind, but kindness is always relative, you must understand this. What has this guy done? Let's not talk about what level of mind we should reach, just think about how many lives Arlong has in his hands, and how many people have been enslaved by him for so many years. You still want to forgive this kind of person, then you deserve it for all these years." "Nanny," everyone shouted. Ignoring everyone's reaction, Lin Hai said loudly, "It is only natural to pay back a debt. The hatred of killing your mother is irreconcilable. Nami, you are not a saint, and I don't ask you to be one. If you don't kill this guy, will you really be happy? Be strong. As Belmere's daughter, you should do something for her. Use Arlong's life to commemorate her. If you don't dare, I will do it for you." Everyone looked at Nami. "The hatred for killing my mother is irreconcilable and must be avenged. As for talking about being afraid of being blinded by hatred, that can only be done after killing Arlong first." Nami thought for a while, looked at the villagers, smiled, and picked up the dagger without hesitation to hit Arlong. Many villagers present had the same idea. After Lin Hai's advice, they became more determined. Congratulations were heard again at the Arlong base. Sanji walked over to Lin Hai and couldn't help but mutter, "Lin Hai, UBD, don't pollute Nami's pure heart." Lin Hai asked, "If someone killed Chef Jaffa of the Sea Restaurant, what would you do?" Sanji blurted out, "I'll kill all those people." Lin Hai said contemptuously, "That's it, why do you ask Nami to forgive Arlong? Forgiving Arlong is God's business, what Nami has to do is to send him to see God." Luffy exclaimed, "I see." Nami walked to Lin Hai, looked at Lin Hai for a while, then bowed to everyone, "Thank you." At the right time, Lin Hai said, "Nami, I'll give you another gift." After saying that, Lin Hai waved his hand and said, "Everyone, step back and stay away from the base. Space field, scan." That's right, Lin Hai learned Trafalgar Lao's moves. After all, the two have many similarities in their abilities to create space fields. Suddenly, a mountain of treasure appeared on the field. In fact, all these treasures were from Arlong Castle. The villagers were amazed to see so many golden treasures suddenly appear, because they didn't know there was such a thing as devil fruit. They thought it was a miracle. What's going on? How come so many treasures suddenly appeared here? This should be done by that young man, right? Could it be that these are what he wants to give to Nami? Luffy on the side pouted, "What? I thought it was delicious." Sanji poked Luffy's head, "Baga, there are so many treasures, you can buy whatever you want to eat." "Really?" Luffy immediately clasped his hands to his chest, leaned forward, and asked Nami with shining eyes, "Nami, can you give me some?" Nami couldn't hear what others said, she was in a state of greedy face. Zoro on the side noticed that Lin Hai did not remove his ability and asked in confusion, "Lin Hai, what else do you want to do?" Lin Hai smiled and said, "You'll know in a moment." One sword style, chrysanthemum slash. Lin Hai hacked at Arlong Castle, and it collapsed piece by piece, raising huge clouds of dust. Ahem, what happened again? Oh, I'm so scared, this young man is really too reckless. Look everyone, Arlong Castle has become a ruin. Hiss, silk cake. Chapter 40. Because of the collapse of Arlong Castle, all the people nearby were affected by the dust. A small stone fell on Zoro's head. Zoro was very unhappy and retorted, "Is this your swordsmanship? Everyone can hack and slash, and you also want to chop and slash." Lin Hai said disdainfully, "Others have no vision, but I didn't expect you to be so short-sighted. Didn't you see that I just cut along the center?" Zoro was about to retort when suddenly a little boy ran up to him, his eyes sparkling, and he said excitedly, "Big brother, you were so handsome just now. I want to be a person like you in the future. Can you take me out to sea?" Lin Hai looked him up and down. What kind of joke was this 7 or 8-year-old kid saying? Taking him out to sea? However, when Lin Hai saw the hat on Luffy's head while he was playing with Usopp and the others, he suddenly felt a sense of mischief. Ahem. Lin Hai squatted down and gently stroked the little boy's hair. Lin Hai chuckled, "Wait for me a moment." After saying that, Lin Hai quickly exchanged a fake beard from the system and stuck it to his lips. Then he released a little bit of Conqueror's haki, which made everyone look over. Lin Hai asked softly, "What's your name?" Luffy ran over and interrupted Lin Hai, "Hey? Who are you? Where is Lin Hai?" Lin Hai kicked Luffy away, put his hand on the boy's shoulder, and continued to smile, "Let's ignore him. What's your name?" The little boy didn't understand, and Kaido said in a daze, "My name is Crossy." Lin Hai put on the same expression as when Shanks handed the straw hat to Luffy, and then said, "Crosia, you are too young, we will not take you out to sea." After that, Lin Hai exchanged an Adidas hat from the system, a white one. Lin Hai put the hat on Crossy's head and said, "Crossy, I heard that your parents were persecuted by Arlong a few years ago, so you have to be strong. Look, this hat is my most precious treasure, the quality is guaranteed. Ugh, well, this hat has accompanied me through many desperate situations and countless battles. Luffy asked me for it before, but I was reluctant to give it to him. Now I'm giving it to you for safekeeping. Crossy, this is not an ordinary hat. When you are lonely, this hat is your companion. I hope it can accompany you through the sad times. When you are confused, this hat is your guiding light. When you are in pain, this hat is the good medicine to heal your pain. Crossy, when you become an excellent pickup girl, or even an excellent adventurer, I will ask you to give it back. We have a deal." Luffy on the side was very upset. He was familiar with this scene. Lin Hai was so funny. But was everything Lin Hai said true? Wow, Lin Hai, you are so great. Luffy was suddenly moved by Lin Hai. At this time, many villagers also started crying. Wow, so touching and romantic. Wow, Lin Hai, you are a real man. What a touching speech, it is so touching. What happened? Lin Hai was confused. The villagers were so excited that he almost believed it himself. At this time, Crossy raised his head, his face full of tears, and said loudly and firmly, "Lin Hai, we agreed that I will take good care of this hat. I will treat it as my partner. Before returning this hat to you, I will definitely keep it well." Lin Hai nodded and smiled without saying anything, then stood up and waved his hand, leaving Crossy with the back of a real man. This was better than pretending, and Lin Hai expressed his satisfaction. After a while, Crossy said loudly to Lin Hai's back, "Lin Hai, I have decided that I will become an adventure king in the future." Lin Hai almost fell down. Damn it, he was too immersed in the role. If he said now that he was joking with him, what kind of psychological trauma would it cause to him? Lin Hai felt like he was not feeling well. There is no other way, I can only pretend to the end. Lin Hai showed a warm smile again and turned to Kaido, "Oh? Adventure King? So, you want to surpass us?" Crossy nodded firmly and said, "Yes. I will find partners who are better than you, and then surpass you. I will definitely be the Adventure King." Sanji, Zoro, Nami and others looked at Luffy strangely. King of Pirates? King of Adventure? Kind of interesting. Luffy, who was originally touched, is now frowning. Imitation is shameful. Piracy is strictly prohibited. We must protest. Lin Hai on the other side was very depressed now. From what Closey said, Lin Hai knew that the brat was serious. But with his ordinary body, he would not drown in the sea, right? Lin Hai really wants to give him a heaven-defying skill, but unfortunately the system stipulates that items such as devil fruit and skills cannot be used by anyone except the host. Lin Hai had no choice but to continue pretending to smile, "I believe you can do it." At this moment, an inappropriate laugh sounded. Chichichi, are you all pirates? All the treasures have been confiscated. The one who came over was Colonel Mouse, who was in charge of this sea area. Colonel Mouse had come to negotiate with Arlong, but he didn't expect to gain a lot today. Colonel Mouse and his subordinates all surrounded him. There was no reason not to take the treasure. Want to confiscate so much treasure? How could this be tolerated? Nami was the first to step forward and said, these treasures belong to the villagers. You have no right to deal with them. Lin Hai quickly pushed Luffy, who was still in a daze. Luffy, if you want to be famous, come forward and introduce yourself, then beat up that rat colonel. I guarantee you will be famous all over the world. Luffy's eyes lit up and he quickly walked over to Nami. My name is Monkey D. Luffy, and I'm the man who's going to be the king of pirates. Who are you? Chichichi. Mouse Colonel Kaido, Pirates King? Shishi, you really don't know your place. Did you defeat that Arlong? Luffy nodded, yes. Usopp wanted to join in the discussion, but was pulled back by Lin Hai, who whispered, why are you so ignorant of the rules? Let the captain show off first. Sanji wondered, if we beat him, will we become famous besides the captain? Lin Hai nodded and said, just do as I say later, and I guarantee you will all get the bounty. Nami was speechless and said, you guys, do you know how serious the situation will be after a bounty is offered? Lin Hai hugged Nami's waist and said jokingly, as pirates, if there is no reward, where will we put our face? At this time, Colonel Mouse had ordered his men to point their guns at Luffy. Lin Hai, Sanji, and Usopp walked behind Luffy, and the two sides confronted each other again. If Luffy had his way, he would be the only one to be put on the bounty list, so Lin Hai glared and used Conqueror's Haki to shock all the miscellaneous soldiers with guns, making them lose their combat effectiveness. Then Lin Hai shouted, everyone, beat him up. I told you to chirp, you stinky rat. I asked you to steal my treasures. All of them belong to me. Hey, you stinky rat, look carefully, my name is Sanji, and I'm the one who's going to beat you up. Colonel Mouse wailed, I don't want those treasures anymore. It doesn't matter what happens. Please let me go. Lin Hai shouted, why don't you hurry up? Remember, we are the Straw Hat Pirates who are going to beat you up. The Mouse Colonel who ran away turned back and threatened, I will remember you, Straw Hat Pirates. You are in big trouble. Just wait and see. I will be back. Lin Hai picked up Arlong's shoe, aimed at Colonel Mouse, and yelled, go, Pikachu, bingo. Chapter 41. They chased Colonel Mouse away. Wasn't that too easy for that BD? It's really a bargain for him. I will report him later. That's right, this Mouse Colonel is a guy who bullies the good and fears the evil. He should have been beaten up again just now. Looking at these people, Lin Hai raised his eyebrows, why don't I catch him and pull out his beard? Ajian shook his head. No need. Anyway, the Arlong pirates were defeated. Ha ha ha. Yoo-hoo, let's have a party to celebrate. Just like that, everyone started cheering to celebrate the end of the nightmare that had lasted for many years. Lin Hai walked to the village chief Ajian and said to the doctor next to him, well, one of my friends is seriously injured. Can you help him treat it? The old doctor cried, of course no problem, who was injured? Luffy wondered, are any of us seriously injured? How come I didn't know about this? Lin Hai rolled his eyes. We don't know how to treat Zoro's wound. We just disinfected it before. Now treat it quickly, otherwise the consequences will be serious. Zoro was full of confusion, I don't need that, I just need a few naps and I'll be fine. Lin Hai nodded Kaido, oh, is that so? Then it's okay. Zoro was furious, Lin Hai, I'm really fine, let me go, ah. It hurts, don't touch my wound. In the night, only Lin Hai was left lying on his side in a corner of the house, while Zoro's wailing continued to be heard from the room. The doctor who was treating Zoro's wound couldn't help but mutter when he saw the serious wound, lie down. Don't you have a ship, doctor? This is outrageous. Ah. After a few days, the wound would become more painful to treat, forcing Zoro to move around, mainly out of instinct. Lin Hai, who was standing outside the window, gloated, the wound on the back is a shame for a swordsman. Well, if you feel good, just shout it out loud. No, you should shout loudly, it feels good. Zoro's face darkened, Lin Hai ubd. At the right moment, Luffy came running over, Eh? Lin Hai, why are you lying here? There are so many delicious foods over there, don't you want to eat them? Lin Hai turned sideways and waved his hand, eat, eat, eat. Where did all that food go? When you were fighting with Arlong, it was too much of a problem, wasn't it? Luffy asked in confusion, what do you mean? Lin Hai was speechless. If I had taken action, Arlong would have only needed one punch. You fought for so long and almost drowned yourself. You have a big problem. Luffy said nonchalantly, is that so? By the way, where is Nami? Aren't you going to comfort her? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, what are you trying to comfort? She must be overwhelmed with emotions right now, so it's better for us not to disturb her. Seeing Luffy about to run out to eat again, Lin Hai hurriedly asked, when are we going to set sail? Luffy pondered kaido for a moment, that depends on Nami. Lin Hai nodded and said, Zoro also needs to rest for a few days, so let's talk about it after the banquet is over. After Luffy left, Zoro asked in confusion, Lin Hai, why don't you go play with those girls? This is not like you. Shit, if I mess around here, how will the people in this village look at Nami? What a bunch of people who don't understand the ways of the world. It's true that Lin Hai likes girls, but he's not like Sanji. Sanji is sick. Lin Hai stood up and said, forget it, I'm going back to the boat to sleep. It's too noisy here, especially the voice of a certain guy, which sounds like the sound of slaughtering a pig. Zoro said angrily, I'm going to chop you up, UBD. Doctor, don't move. Zoro, it hurts, be gentle, doctor. Lin Hai was the only one left on the boat. Looking at the lights emanating from the village in the distance, it was like a rare treasure coming out of the world. This was a scene he had never seen before, and Lin Hai looked at it a few more times. After lying down on his bed, Lin Hai quickly called up his personal panel. Because after he fainted in the restaurant at sea, the system started to be optimized, causing the data to change. Flirting system host Lin Hai physical fitness, level 5, top level 10, observation haki, first order armament haki, first order conquerors haki, second stage with free control of the target of shock, skill 1, 1. Establish a space field 2. 1 sword style 3. Space / high level use of space fruit, cooling down, skill 2, Dugu 9 swords, reference, system store, opened, flirtatious coins, 25 note, force is no longer presented in numerical form. Personal force is mainly assessed by comprehensive ability, and the numerical model can no longer be used as a reference. After seeing these contents, Lin Hai understood that since he had mastered Conqueror's haki and possessed spatial abilities, the system could no longer assess whether he was a captain, a rear admiral, or something higher. Because, in a life and death duel, Lin Hai, who possesses these abilities, may be killed by those who are stronger than Lin Hai, as long as the difference in strength is not too great. As for the Dugu 9 swords, Lin Hai was speechless. The power system of the world was different. Lin Hai found that he could not practice it at all because there was no such thing as internal force in the pirates' world. Lin Hai quickly communicated with the system, System, what do you mean? I thought you gave me a peerless sword technique, but this is all. Feng Shao system, because the host only started learning kendo halfway through, the Dugu 9 swords is the most suitable technique for the host. Do you want to learn the sword moves and understand the ideas in the secret book? This is indeed suitable for you. After shutting down the system, I listened to the sound of the waves outside the boat and the faint sounds of celebration coming from the village in the distance. Lin Hai began to ask himself what he really wanted. Becoming the pirates' king or something like that, Lin Hai was very sure. He really had no interest in the pirates' king, but he was somewhat interested in what that one piece was, so many people were pursuing it, Lin Hai also wanted to take a look. After a long time, Lin Hai discovered that what he liked and was most interested in were beautiful women. Before Lin Hai could continue thinking, he suddenly found someone on board. Lin Hai quickly released observation haki, which was Nami's breath. What is she doing here? Could it be that you are lonely? Chapter 42. Walking out of the room, seeing Nami coming over, Lin Hai asked, why are you here? Nami rolled her eyes and said, of course I came here to see you. Everyone is having a party, but why are you sleeping on the boat by yourself? Lin Hai cried, let's go tomorrow. Judging from their attitude, this party won't end without a few days and nights. As he spoke, Lin Hai sat down on the deck, looking at the sky full of stars, while Nami sat next to Lin Hai. Nami followed Lin Hai's gaze and looked up at the sky, only then did she realize that the sky was so beautiful. Nami exclaimed, "It turns out that the night sky here is so beautiful." Lin Hai cried, "Yeah, didn't you know that before?" Nami shook her head cried, "I never felt this way before." Lin Hai sighed, "The waves are the same as always, rolling over waves that have nothing to do with human beings. Life is so intriguing." Nami was confused, "What are you talking about? I don't quite understand." Lin Hai joked, "Who told you not to study hard before, and just kept talking about Bailey every day? Who can you blame now that you don't know?" "Nami, you guys, you always talk so much like you deserve a beating, as if you have read a lot of books." After the two were silent for a while, Nami said softly, "Lin Hai, thank you for saving Kikyoxi village this time, I." Lin Hai said quickly, "Stop it, Arlong is a man who wants to beat him up, and he has nothing to do with saving you. You can only be regarded as an accessory." Nami was so angry that she pressed Lin Hai down, "You guy, is it so hard to say you did it for me? Why do you have to say it so irritatingly? I'm a girl. I need comfort too, right?" Lin Hai was speechless. "Friends, don't get involved in this kind of relationship, otherwise I'm afraid you will think we are sympathizing with you, which will make us feel very uncomfortable when we get along in the future." Nami retorted, "Who cares? You can tell me or not." Lin Hai asked, "What?" Nami said, "You said you knocked Arlong down because of me." "For you." Lin Hai said disdainfully, "Stop being so conceited. I won't say anything. If you don't let me go, I'll fight back." Nami said playfully, "You dare to hit me." Lin Hai turned over, and the situation was instantly reversed, with Lin Hai suppressing Nami. The two looked at each other for a moment. Looking at this beautiful face, Lin Hai couldn't help but think of Nami's past, a strong, brave, but pitiful woman. Lin Hai thought about himself again, would he stay with Nami alone? The answer is definitely no. Lin Hai is sure of this. Lin Hai quickly stood up and said, "It's getting late, you should go back to bed." Nami smiled brightly, "This is unlike you. Didn't you always try to take advantage of me before? What's wrong with you now?" Lin Hai had to confess, "I'm afraid I will hurt you. Are you going back to the village or sleeping here?" Nami did not answer, but hugged Lin Hai from behind, and then whispered, "You know what? I never thought I would be as free as I am now. I was like a straw about to be drowned by the water, and you saved me." Lin Hai was speechless. "It's everyone, can you let me go? This is unbearable." Nami is 1.7 meters tall, 3'6". Nami felt Lin Hai's unstable breathing, and immediately said proudly, "Since I'm here, I don't plan to go back." Lin Hai asked, "Are you planning to repay a favor or for some other reason?" "Nami, both. You were the one who always took advantage of me." Lin Hai turned around and looked into Nami's eyes and said, "Since you don't regret it, then I won't be polite." Lin Hai picked up Nami and returned to the room. The next morning Nami, who was sleeping soundly, felt that this was the most peaceful sleep she had had in the past few years. Nami woke up, and soon she understood what was going on. Nami said, "What time is it?" Lin Hai cried, "Who knows? The villagers are still having a party. Let's just cherish the time here." Nami was speechless. "No, I have to go back and pack my things." How could Lin Hai listen to Nami? Lin Hai praised, "It doesn't matter if there's a little time, right?" "I don't know how long it took." Nami rolled her eyes at Lin Hai and said, "I'll go back first, you can go in later." Lin Hai cried, "I listen to you." In Kikoyaxi village, the villagers have been singing and dancing happily since the banquet started yesterday, without any signs of fatigue at all. Usopp built a platform with stools and tables, then stood on it and started bragging. "I don't know how much Luffy has eaten, but he keeps stuffing food into his mouth." Sanji was cooking, and a group of children were surrounding him, all of them screaming. This speed was really admirable. And Zoro was drinking in one place. Zoro saw Lin Hai coming over and immediately smiled, "Hey Lin Hai, the wine here is really good, would you like to have some too?" Lin Hai was speechless. "You just treated your wound, and you're still drinking?" Zoro asked confusedly, "What's the problem?" Lin Hai didn't even bother to care about him. What a bunch of animals. It was really speechless. This is a big problem. We just can't drink. Lin Hai pointed at Usopp on the podium and asked Zoro, "Has Usopp been yelling like this since last night?" Isn't there something wrong with his throat? Zoro shook his head and said, I don't know. He was there when I came out. Lin Hai exclaimed, you are all a bunch of monsters, so scary. Zoro said disdainfully, you're the weirdest here, right? Ignoring Zoro's question, Lin Hai looked at the knife on Zoro's waist and suggested, I think you should practice swordsmanship with a knife. Zoro asked in confusion, why? Lin Hai laughed and said, because your sword style is really bad. What Zoro hated most was when someone said he couldn't compare to others. Now that Lin Hai said that, he immediately got angry and asked, what did you say? Do you want us to compete now? Lin Hai waved his hand and said, come on, there's no injury on the back of the great swordsman. Zoro's face flushed and he said angrily, UBD, do you want us to compete now? Lin Fan hurriedly ran away. What a joke. He hadn't eaten anything since the banquet started. He was almost starving to death. Chapter 43. After defeating Arlong, the villagers of Kikoyasi village and the neighboring villagers gathered in Kikoyasi village for a banquet. The banquet lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. People could not bear it anymore, so they ended the banquet. The next day, the sun was shining brightly and there was a gentle breeze at the coast. Many villagers gathered there to see off the Straw Hat crew. On going merry, Sanji didn't see Nami, so he asked Lin Hai, where's Miss Nami? Isn't she coming? Lin Hai shook his head, how should I know? Luffy, who was still in the state of the banquet, couldn't help but ask, Sanji, how can I find the ham and cantaloupe? No one bothered to pay attention to Luffy, and Usopp on the side replied, Nami is likely not to come. After all, her village has been rescued. There is no reason for her to go out to sea with us and live such an adventurous life. Sanji said anxiously, how can this be possible? If Nami doesn't come, then my being on this ship will lose 98.72% of its meaning. After saying that, Sanji seemed to remember something, and immediately turned to look at Zoro and asked, you must have said something to Nami, so she didn't come, right? Zoro wondered, why would I do that? Sanji said, you are jealous of the love between me and Nami, so you did that, that must be the case. Are you an idiot? What did you say? You wanna fight? Damn, these two people. Lin Hai immediately sat aside and watched the fun, holding a chicken leg in one hand and a glass of wine in the other, sipping it with relish. Usopp exclaimed, Lin Hai, where did you get that thing in your hand? Before Lin Hai could speak, Nami's voice came from the coast, start the boat. After saying that, Nami started running. Usopp on the merry asked confusedly, Nami, what does this mean? Luffy smiled and said, we'll just sail the boat. After a while, Nami on the shore jumped, and Lin Hai exclaimed, if this Nami was in Daxia, she would definitely win the long jump championship. The villagers on the shore immediately understood what Nami had done. Is this Nami guy just going to say goodbye to us? No, how can you say goodbye so hastily, Nami? Hey? What is Nami going to do? Nami, who was standing on the deck at this time, pulled up her clothes, and her wallet fell out. That wasn't enough, Nami showed him a large bill and gave him a kiss before smiling, take care, everyone. Usopp, Zoro and Lin Hai were all speechless when they saw this scene on the boat. This Nami is really speechless. Suddenly, the mixed voices of the villagers came from the shore. How dare you? Return your wallet to me, you little thief. Come back soon, Nami, you can't say goodbye to us so hastily. Be sure to take good care of yourself, Nami, bye. Soon, Going Merry sailed out of the waters near Kikoya West village. The noise from the party still faintly echoed in my mind. Although I had only stayed in Koko West village for a few days, it made everyone develop a sense of affection. Especially when he saw Nami lying on the bench reading a newspaper, Lin Hai couldn't help but feel moved. The amorous feelings of that night still made Lin Hai linger and could not stop thinking about it. Nami noticed that Lin Hai was looking at her, but she didn't care much and continued reading the newspaper. At the right moment, Luffy was kicked to the deck by Sanji. Luffy said, just eat an orange, cheapskate Sanji. Sanji protested, this is Nami's treasure, you can't eat any of it. Ah, Lin Hai, when did you steal the oranges? Do you want to be beaten? Lin Hai said disdainfully, I brought these oranges from the village. Suddenly, several pieces of paper the size of a bounty order fell out of the newspaper in Nami's hand and landed on the deck. Everyone looked over curiously. In the corner of his eye, Lin Hai saw the handsome photo of himself. In the photo, Lin Hai was holding his head high and looking back. It turned out that it was at the restaurant on the sea. When Lin Hai was talking to Hawkeye, someone filmed Lin Hai saying dirty words. Lin Hai was very satisfied with such a handsome photo, but when he saw the reward amount below the photo, he was shocked and froze there. Several people on the boat noticed Lin Hai's abnormality, and Zoro asked, "What happened to Lin Hai?" Usopp exclaimed while holding Luffy's bounty, "Wow, Luffy's first bounty is 30 million belly, that's amazing." "Ha ha ha ha." Luffy said cheerfully, 30 million, 30 million, Lin Hai, is there a bounty on you too?" Zoro took the bounty from Lin Hai, and the others looked at the bounty amount, and everyone was stunned. "Pucci, ha ha ha. Ha ha ha, Lin Hai, what on earth did you do that is so outrageous?" Nami said, "Sanji, what's wrong with you? Why are you the same as Lin Hai?" It turns out that Sanji's bounty picture is an idiot face, with yellow hair, curly eyebrows, lifeless eyes, and thick lips. There is such a huge difference between him and Sanji himself. And what about Lin Hai? There was nothing wrong with Lin Hai's photo, but the reward was 250 baileys. Lin Hai was in a bad mood. It was 250 baileys, not 20 million or 200 million. What can 250 bailey do? Maybe you can't even afford to buy someone a pair of shoes. The bounty on Sanji's head is 8 million baileys. Although Sanji doesn't care much about the amount, the picture is really unacceptable to him. Zoro's bounty is 10 million belly, Usopp's bounty is 5 million belly, but Nami has no bounty. For a moment, when people saw this information, their reactions varied. Zoro, Luffy, and Usopp are happy. Sanji knelt on the deck like a stone statue, while Lin Hai was completely withdrawn. It turns out that the happiness of each person is different. Lin Hai squatted at the corner of the boat and drew unknown circles. Why are there only 250 baileys? If I meet any pirates in the future, I will be so amused that I will die. What went wrong? Why is there such a ridiculous bounty? It must be that damned Colonel Rat. Lin Hai exclaimed, "Nami, turn the boat around, I want to go back and kill that rat colonel, he actually gave such an outrageous bounty." Usopp quickly grabbed Lin Hai, "Lin Hai, calm down, it's good that you have a bounty, I don't even have a bounty, ha ha ha." Lin Hai said angrily, "Before I kill the mouse colonel, I will kill you first, so that you can laugh at me." "Ah, save me, Lin Hai is going to kill someone. Ha ha ha." Chapter 44. When Colonel Mouse faxed the photos of the Straw Hat crew, he exaggerated their deeds and how dangerous they were. Originally, the bounty on Lin Hai was not 250 baileys. Unfortunately, the bounty on Lin Hai was seen by Marine Admiral Aokiji, who passed by. It's true that mountains and rivers meet each other. Aokiji didn't forget that Lin Hai borrowed 250 baileys from him, so Aokiji set this amount himself out of a sense of humor. Who made that stinky Lin Hai make me so angry? When Aokiji handed Garp the Lin Hai bounty order, Garp gave all his senbei to Marine Marshal Sengoku. Because Garp is full. I remember that Garp and Aokiji laughed for several hours while looking at Lin Hai's bounty order. If Lin Hai knew that it was Aokiji who did this, Lin Hai would definitely practice his skills well, and then go to the naval headquarters to find Aokiji and learn what swordsmanship is. At this time, going merry. Lin Hai couldn't eat, and the beauty didn't appeal to him anymore. He still hid on the deck, drawing inexplicable circles, and cursed the mouse colonel for having as much hair as his beard. But Sanji on the other side is interesting. Luffy smiled and said, "Sanji, don't be unhappy. 8 million baileys is already pretty good for the first bounty." Sanji pointed at the photo of his bounty and asked, "Is this me? Why did my photo become like this? I'm sure all the beauties in the world will laugh at me now." Luffy took the bounty from Sanji and looked at it, then cried, "This is your picture, it's exactly the same." Ha ha ha. Zoro echoed, "Yes, exactly the same, ha ha ha." Sanji retorted, "How can they be exactly the same, this damn marine? By the way, where is Lin Hai?" Luffy cried, "He's over there." Sanji looked where Luffy pointed and asked in confusion, "What happened to Lin Hai?" Usopp covered his mouth and handed Lin Hai's bounty order to Sanji. After Sanji read it, he immediately felt balanced. Ha ha ha. Only then did Sanji realize that there were such strange things in the world. 250 bailey? Sanji rolled over on the deck, holding his stomach. Lin Hai resisted the urge to kill these guys and continued his circle. After a long time, Luffy, whose novelty wore off, couldn't hold back and started clamoring to play with him again. Luffy ran to Lin Hai and said excitedly, "Lin Hai, let's play hide and seek." Lin Hai doubted his ears. "What did you just say?" Luffy laughed, "It's hide and seek." Usopp on the side shouted, "Count me in." Lin Hai quickly refused, "What's so fun about this? How can we catch it in broad daylight? Go play with Zoro, Sanji and the others. I need to work on my abilities." Zoro on the side exclaimed when he heard about playing hide and seek, "How old are you? That's something for children, right?" Usopp smirked, "I guess you're afraid of losing." "What did you say?" Zoro's biggest weakness is his competitiveness, which is also his advantage. Provoked by Usopp, Zoro actually started playing with them. Lin Hai, who was sitting on the side of the deck, ignored it and started studying his spatial ability. Otherwise, if he got another spatial slash and was dizzy for 3 days again, wouldn't that be so embarrassing? Now the question is, Lin Hai's own physical strength has reached the level of CP9's boss Lucci, and it is no longer so easy to improve. So what should be improved now is haki and fruit ability. Fruit ability. Lin Hai ate Paramecia's space fruit. How should he develop it? Like Doflamingo, influence the things around, assimilate things, and use them for my own benefit? This obviously doesn't work. Doflamingo's is lines, and Lin Hai's is space. Like Katakuri who ate the sticky rice fruit, developing Paramecia into Logia. This is indeed a direction of development, integrating oneself into the space, but Lin Hai is not at this level yet. That should be the awakening state. Damn, no clue. The most difficult things in the world must come before the easy ones, so let's start with the most basic ones. Currently, Lin Hai can create a space field, in which he can freely control people and objects inside. This ability requires weirdness and thinking ability. Because in the space field, even if the opponent has observation haki, if he is unaware, Lin Hai will make a space swap and slash at him with a knife, and the opponent is likely to be hit directly. So this requires a person's speed and thinking ability. At the same time, this application can also be used to avoid the opponent's attack. Space exchange is also a development direction. Then the other one is the ability to cut in the space field. Although Lin Hai's cutting ability is greatly enhanced in the space field, it is not invincible. For example, if Kaido and Big Mom were to be cut by Lin Hai now, Lin Hai would not be able to cut them. Just like when Luffy, Law, and Kid challenged Kaido, Law had already made it clear that his cutting ability was not enough to cut the 2-4 emperors. By the same token, Lin Hai doesn't think that he is better than Luo Lai back then. In this case, then first practice swordsmanship and spatial transformation in the space field. Especially last time when he was dodging Arlong's water attack, he was hit twice because of his lack of thinking ability. If you make this kind of mistake in a duel with an expert, all your subsequent movements will be disrupted and you will be caught up in your opponent's rhythm, resulting in a beating. If the opponent's attack is very high, that's it. Like Marine Admiral Kizaru's laser, Marine Admiral Akainu's fist. Thinking of this, Lin Hai became a little uneasy. Seeing Luffy and the others playing around, Lin Hai interrupted and said, "Stop playing, Luffy, let's practice." Luffy is a person who pursues new things. When he heard that Lin Hai wanted to practice with him, he immediately became interested, and the others also wanted to see Lin Hai's abilities. Everyone made room for them, leaving the center for Lin Hai and Luffy. Lin Hai said, "Luffy, use your machine gun moves to hit me, but be careful not to damage the boat." Luffy rubbed his fingers and smiled, "You better be careful, don't try to guess, machine gun fire randomly." Lin Hai gave Luffy a playful look, and dodged Luffy's punches calmly. Sanji on the side couldn't help but mutter, "Is this the observation haki that Lin Hai mentioned?" Zoro remained silent, but his expression became extremely serious. Usopp opened his mouth, "Silk cake." Nami looked at Luffy and Lin Hai, "I don't know what kind of monsters they are." Chapter 45. Ola La. Luffy continued to attack, but found that he couldn't hit Lin Hai at all. He said angrily, "I won't fight anymore, Lin Hai, you are cheating." Lin Hai still crossed his arms and said playfully, "Keep fighting." Luffy pouted, "You're basically cheating by using observation haki." Lin Hai smiled and said, "Well, it's okay if I don't hide, right?" "Really?" Luffy's eyes suddenly lit up. Lin Hai asked in confusion, "What's with that expression on your face? Does hitting me make you so happy?" Luffy looked sideways at kite in the sky, "Where do I have it?" "Hey, this is too fake, isn't it? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, go ahead, I won't move. Luffy's dense fists kept hitting Lin Hai, causing exclamations from the people nearby. Sanji quickly asked, hey, is this really okay? Zoro said uncertainly, it should be okay, otherwise Lin Hai wouldn't ask Luffy to beat him like this. Usopp was sweating coldly. He couldn't even imagine being beaten by Luffy like this. After fighting for a while, Luffy retracted his fist. Lin Hai yawned in the middle of the field, nothing happened, and then said in a very annoying way, ah, it hurts. Luffy immediately felt offended. For a moment, Luffy said angrily, Lin Hai, UBD, I want to duel with you. Usopp quickly hugged Luffy's waist and said, you can't beat him, calm down, you have to stay calm. Luffy refused, so what? Even if I can't beat him, I'll still fight him. Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, everyone, watch carefully. I will show you what speed is. Shaving. Suddenly, the deck was filled with the afterimage of Lin Hai, and Nami on the side suddenly felt as if someone had kissed her cheek. Usopp asked in confusion, hey? Where did this guy Lin Hai go? He was just here. Zoro explained, Lin Hai's speed is too fast, the naked eye can no longer follow him. Sanji kept looking around, but couldn't keep up with Lin Fan's speed. Sanji couldn't help but mutter, Lin Hai, this guy, is this too fast? After running around the deck, Lin Hai lay back down on it and said proudly, I'll show you this move first. Whether you can learn it depends on your luck. I'll make it clear in advance that I won't teach you. Seeing Lin Fan being so arrogant, Sanji said unhappily, Lin Hai, what's so great about your speed? Sooner or later, I will be able to do this trick too. At this time, Luffy stepped forward and said, Lin Hai, you just moved by stomping your feet on the ground quickly, right? Usopp said thoughtfully, I feel like I've seen Lin Hai's movements before somewhere. Luffy sighed, Kuro's silent step is very similar to this, but his speed is not as fast as Lin Hai's. Usopp then remembered, no wonder it feels so familiar to me. Zoro couldn't help but ask, will all the opponents we meet in the future be so strong? Usopp exclaimed, isn't this too scary? Lin Hai said with a smile, don't you want to make progress? Don't you think it's romantic to learn these? A full sense of accomplishment, hee. Romance? A sense of accomplishment. Luffy smiled and said, it is indeed very romantic. Everyone, I think I have learned this trick too. Nani? Is this true? This is impossible. No way, Luffy, I feel like the gap between you and me is getting bigger and bigger. Luffy on the deck suddenly squatted down, put one hand on the ground, and whispered, second gear. Heat was seen coming out of Luffy's body, and his skin turned red. Call out. Luffy on the deck suddenly disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already fighting fist to fist with Lin Hai. Because the power was so strong, a wave of air spread out from the two of them to the surrounding areas. Ah! Nami exclaimed suddenly, frightened by this sudden scene. Zoro and Sanji on the side narrowed their eyes. No matter whether it was Lin Hai or Luffy, their speed made them a little behind. They couldn't help but feel a little anxious in their hearts. The improvement of these two people's strength was really amazing. Usopp exclaimed, Luffy, you really learned it. I am so envious. Yoo-hoo. Luffy released his second gear state and said depressedly, Lin Hai, your speed is too fast, right? But I finally learned this trick. Ha ha ha. Lin Hai said disdainfully, I already learned it when I was in the village. What are you so proud of? If you don't know Haki, you will only be cannon fodder after entering the new world. Do you understand? Luffy patted Lin Hai's shoulder and said nonchalantly, Zixixi, don't be so serious, relax. I will be the king of pirates. Lin Hai kicked Luffy away and said speechlessly, UBD, why did you hit me so hard? It hurts me to death. Sanji rolled his eyes and said, isn't your excuse too fake? Zoro said, we have to practice hard, otherwise we will not be able to catch up with them. At the right time, Lin Hai said, Luffy, you are using the properties of rubber to speed up the blood flow. This method is easy to consume physical strength in battle. If you fight a protracted battle, it will put a great burden on your body. No, you must learn to shave without using the second gear. Otherwise, I will beat you up every time I see you. Luffy sat up and asked confusedly, is that so? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, you should improve your physical fitness. You should think about how to give someone a fatal blow in the second gear. Do you understand? Sanji couldn't help kide, is the advantage a disadvantage? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, that depends on the situation. If Luffy's physical fitness is not up to par and he dares to fight with others in Gear 2, he can only fight for his life, which will cause too much damage to his body. Luffy interrupted, everyone, I have a more interesting move. That should be the third gear. Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, not interested. Let's go fishing first. Dinner tonight. Before Lin Hai could finish, Usopp and Luffy immediately took out their fishing rods and handed them to Lin Hai. Lin Hai asked in confusion, I only want one, what are you going to do with it? Because you are a fishing expert. Get lost. The noise will eventually return to silence, and under the blue sky, there is a lonely boat floating. Zoro was sleeping there again, Nami was lying on the chair, and Sanji, who came out of the kitchen, became excited again when he saw Nami. Sanji placed a drink next to Nami and said, Dear Miss Nami, try the new drink I made for you. Nami kide, arigato, Sanji. You're welcome, Nami-san. Sanji looked towards the side of the boat and couldn't help but ask curiously, are they fishing? Nami was speechless, they are having a fishing competition. 3 people at the boat pole were seen fishing and singing, little fish, hurry up and take the bait, hurry up and come to my bucket, la 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 di Meisha. At the right moment, Luffy said, I will definitely catch more than you this time. What song is this? Can this catch fish? Sanji couldn't help but be curious and walked over to see what these 3 people were doing. Suddenly, Lin Hai said, come on, who of you can help me hold the fishing rod? Luffy asked in confusion, you can't even pull up a fish? That's lame. Lin Hai no longer had the mood to pay attention to Luffy. The fishing rod's line couldn't bear the weight of this big fish. Sanji grabbed Lin Hai's fishing rod and asked in confusion, what are you doing? Lin Hai explained, a big fish was hooked, and I went to the sea to fish it out. Before he finished speaking, Lin Hai had already jumped into the sea. Chapter 46. On the deck, Zoro was sleeping soundly, when suddenly, a big fish fell from the sky. Zoro, who was dreaming, was hit and became angry, only to find that it was a big fish. This big fish was thrown out by Lin Hai after he knocked Zoro unconscious with a punch. It was definitely not thrown at Zoro intentionally by Lin Hai. After a while, seeing that Zoro was still angry, Lin Hai had to throw a bottle of beer at him to calm him down. A bottle of beer from Feng Shao system costs $5, that's too expensive. Zoro was enjoying his drink when he suddenly found that Lin Hai was using his sword as a harpoon to grill fish. Zoro suddenly lost his composure and asked in a daze, Lin Hai, how can you use your own sword like this? Lin Hai asked in confusion, can't it be used this way? Zoro said angrily, don't you know, UBD, that a sword is a swordsman's most important companion. Lin Hai threw another bottle of beer over and rolled his eyes, eat your food. How can you ordinary people understand my realm? Sanji said amusedly, like. Lin Hai's eyes lit up, he let Sanji hold the barbecue in his hand, then looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, and everyone's eyes twitched suddenly. Sure enough, Lin Hai sighed and said, I fish, I train observation haki and the control of power, I grill fish with a sword, that's because. Everyone was puzzled. In fact, Lin Hai had forgotten the following lines, and quickly took out his notes, and said happily, burning fish with a sword actually means I want to prove that my sword can move mountains, overturn the sea, kill fish, and grill. This guy. Everyone put their hands on their foreheads, extremely speechless. Amid the noise of the crowd, they unknowingly arrived at Logue Town. Logue Town was the birthplace of Pirates King Gol. D. Roger and also the place where he was executed. When Luffy heard that this was the place where Roger was born and died, he immediately rushed to see the platform where Roger was executed. Lin Hai was really speechless about all this. He just finally arrived at that place called something, and was given the title of King of Pirates by the world. Looking at the admiring looks on their faces, it really made him speechless. Maybe it's because of the different world views. If you have time to worship Roger, you might as well look for the one piece that Brother Guangzai left for everyone. At the right moment, Zoro said, Nami, give me some money to buy a knife. Nami kide, sure, but you have to pay me back 3 times the principal and interest. Zoro, since we are so familiar with each other, we don't need to pay interest, right? Nami protested, No. Zoro had no choice but to borrow 200,000 baileys from Nami. It was Lin Hai's turn. Lin Hai stepped forward and said, Nami, give me some bailey to buy something to eat. Nami asked, you want to borrow too? You still owe me 1 million baileys. Lin Hai was confused and said, what do you mean by 1 million baileys? When I was in Kikyoxi village, I looted so much from Arlong and gave it to you. Why are you still asking me for that? Nami said as a matter of course, that's the villagers' money, how can we count it? Lin Hai was speechless, you are such a stinky woman, I don't want you anymore. Soon, everyone went to play their own games. Luffy ran to find the execution platform, Sanji went to buy ingredients, Zoro went to buy a knife, Usopp went to buy weapons, and Lin Hai went to appreciate the local customs. Look, there was a commotion not far away. It turned out that two thugs stopped a beautiful woman. Isn't that beautiful girl Tashigi? As for whether she is Zoro's CP, Lin Hai doesn't care. Is Tashigi related to Zoro? At least they don't know each other now, so why can't he, Lin Hai, pursue her? At this time, not far away, one of the two tall thugs said to Tashigi, our leader was arrested by you and put in jail, right? Tashigi wore black glasses and held a knife wrapped in cloth in both hands. Kaido said, have you not learned your lesson yet? Another thug Kaido said, yeah, we can't bear this. One of them echoed, we're going to throw your body in front of him. Lin Hai knew the opportunity had come and it was time to show his true skills. So, without waiting for Tashigi to speak, Lin Hai ran to Tashigi and said affectionately, Earth, thank you for giving me today's encounter. Love, please laugh at me who can't bear this pain. Tashigi asked confusedly, who are you? Lin Hai kissed the back of Tashigi's hand. Kaido, who am I? I am me, a different firework, blooming a moment of beauty for you. Tashigi blushed, Kaido, I'm sorry, thank you for your love, but I don't plan to fall in love, The two thugs nearby were immediately annoyed. They came here to cause trouble, but they were ignored. One of them drew his sword and pointed it at Lin Hai, angrily saying, who are you, UBD? Get out of the way. Lin Hai then turned to look at the two hooligans and exclaimed, wow, you are dressed so sexy, the two braids on your head are so interesting, and your belly is so big, my pig doesn't seem to be as heavy as you. Pucci, hee hee. Tashigi covered his mouth and chuckled after hearing Lin Hai's teasing. You two bastards, prepare to die. The thug could no longer bear it and was about to jump up and chop at Lin Hai with a knife, but Lin Hai glared at him, and the two thugs who jumped into the air seemed to be deflated, fell straight down and fainted. Tashigi on the side was a little confused, what happened? What happened to them? Lin Hai shook his head, how should I know? Lin Hai, who was turning around, didn't expect Tashigi to be so stupid. Her foot was tripped by the knife in her hand and she almost fell. Lin Hai took the opportunity to hug her waist. For a moment, on the street, a man was seen hugging a woman who was about to fall, and the two were looking at each other. Tashigi reacted and said quickly, oh, this is so embarrassing, help me up. Seeing Tashigi tidying up her clothes, Lin Hai couldn't help but say, what's there to be ashamed of? Don't you think we were very romantic just now? Tashigi said seriously, I'm telling you, you should find a job instead of trying to be a love saint. You don't look like you have any assets, do you? Assets? Lin Hai is just a pirate, where do he get his assets? So Lin Hai cried, yes, how did you know? If Lin Hai knew Tashigi's train of thought, he would never ask this question. Chapter 47. Tashigi saw Lin Hai and asked him how he knew he had no assets. Isn't this simple? So Tashigi stepped forward and explained, looking at your frivolous actions just now, you are the type of person who idles around all day. Judging from your clothes, you don't have much money. Do you have a bedridden elderly person at home? Or did your wife run away and you have to raise several hungry children by yourself? Anyway, I won't ask too many questions. Come with me and I'll introduce you to a job. As long as you are hardworking enough, it will be no problem to support them. Damn, this woman wouldn't encounter this kind of situation often and include herself in it, right? But what's her problem? For a moment, Lin Hai was so confused by Tashigi's operation that his brain short-circuited. Oh my god, Lin Hai can't stand it anymore. Lin Hai reacted and said quickly, I'm single, I don't need you to introduce me, goodbye, no, don't say goodbye. Lin Hai hurriedly ran away, and could still hear Tashiji catching up with him. She said as she ran, "You don't have to be so shy. It's nothing to be embarrassed about if a young person makes a mistake. As long as you face life bravely, everything will still be in time." Where's he? Lin Hai hid in the alley and gasped for breath. Damn, this woman is too sharp. I quickly wrote down these words so that others can feel the confusion I am in now. Just as I finished taking notes, a white-haired, strong-looking man came over from the other end of the alley. Isn't this Smoker? Smoker heard from his subordinates that the Straw Hat Pirates had landed on the island and the bounty order was also sent from the naval headquarters, but Smoker didn't even read it and hurried out to arrest people. So he didn't know that Lin Hai was from the Straw Hat crew. At this time, Smoker saw that Lin Hai was so serious and was actually taking notes, and it seemed that he was a cultured person. So, Smoker greeted him and said, "You are really hard-working. Keep it up." Lin Hai was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "Thank you. Can I borrow a cigarette?" Without waiting for Smoker to answer, Lin Hai had already taken 3 cigars from his collar, put one between his left and right ears, and bit one in his mouth. This cigar is very expensive. Although Smoker feels the pain, he is not a stingy person. At this time, Lin Hai took a deep puff of the cigar and said, "Wow, your cigarette is really good, but smoking is harmful to your health, you should smoke less, especially 2 at a time." Now it was Smoker's turn to be stunned. An intellectual is an intellectual. It has been a long time since someone cared about him like this. This feeling is pretty good. Those 3 cigars were a treat for him, so now he doesn't feel the pain anymore. Smoker waved his hand and said, "Stop talking nonsense. I have something else to do first. Bye." Lin Hai cried, "Walk slowly." Looking at Smoker's leaving back, Lin Hai smiled amusedly. She wondered what expression he would have if he knew that he was a pirate. "You won't chase me to the ends of the earth, right? Damn, this is really possible." Thinking of this, Lin Hai shuddered instantly and quickly found a place to drink a glass of strong liquor to calm his nerves. Should I open an observation haki? Otherwise, I will meet some strange people again. Forget it, if you know everything, then what's the point of going out to sea? Is it still an adventure? Soon, Lin Hai forgot what happened just now. There were a few people sitting in an old-fashioned bar. Aren't these people the buggy pirates who came to seek revenge on Luffy and his gang? At this time, Buggy is fortune-telling. Ha 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 ha. Buggy smiled proudly for a while, then said, "According to divination, the Straw Hat crew has landed on this island. The time for revenge is about to come." Alvida, who had eaten the slippery fruit and turned into a beautiful woman, stepped forward and asked, "So, can you successfully take his life?" He he he. Buggy cried, "Of course, the one who's going to die is." As he said that, Buggy showed the last card, and it turned out to be himself. "Alvida, Allah, isn't this you?" "Buggy!" Buggy exclaimed and fell headfirst onto the table. At this moment, a burst of uninhibited singing rang out, "La la la, Dimasha! La la la, Lua Lua!" Who else could it be if it wasn't Lin Hai? Seeing Buggy sitting there, Lin Hai was stunned, but immediately greeted him, "Hey, that Kaiba? Ah, Buggy, it's been a long time since we last met. It feels so familiar to see you again." Buggy cried, "Oh, it's you. It's been a long time. Hello." Buggy's crew members Machi and Alvida looked at Buggy strangely. Buggy reacted and said angrily, "Well, UBD, you made it so hard for us to find it. Do you know that? From the day I was knocked away, I returned to my friends with only the determination for revenge. It was a great adventure. With my missing body parts, I went through a great adventure as a little Buggy that was full of joys and sorrows, as well as friendship. But what about little Buggy?" As he was talking, Buggy realized that he had gone off topic and said angrily, "What are you asking me to say, a hole?" Lin Hai was speechless. "Didn't you keep saying that? By the way, the cape you're wearing is quite fashionable. Isn't it hot?" Buggy cried, "There's nothing we can do about it. After all, a colonel from the naval headquarters has come to this town. He's too powerful." Buggy reacted and said angrily again, "Whose nose are you saying is fashionable, UBD? For revenge, I will join forces with the beautiful Miss Alvida next to me. Just stand there and accept our punishment gorgeously, This Buggy is quite interesting." Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said with a smile, that's all old news. As pirates, we are still entangled in such trivial matters. You are such a petty person. Buggy said angrily, what did you say? Lin Hai casually took a cup and took a sip, then said, did I knock you away? If you are so unhappy, go find Luffy. Hey, can you all stop being so serious? It's a rare opportunity to meet again. The fate of the sea is really wonderful. We are all children of the sea. Come on, cheers. Buggy couldn't help but mutter, children of the sea? Even so, I won't forgive you. Lin Hai put his arm around Buggy's shoulders and said with a smile, don't dwell on those little things. Let's have a few drinks first. I'll treat you guys to a meal later as an apology. Is that okay? Buggy cried, since you are so sensible, if I continue to pester you, I will really become a petty person. However, I have not forgiven that BD Straw Hat. Lin Hai interrupted directly, cheers. Buggy doesn't know yet, he will be cheated again later. Chapter 48. After drinking a drink with Buggy, Lin Hai realized that Alvida was looking at him with dissatisfaction. Lin Hai smiled and said, beautiful lady, shall we have a drink too? Hee hee. Alvida said, finally you noticed me. Where is that Luffy? That punch back then was really unforgettable. Thinking of Alvida who didn't eat the devil fruit, Lin Hai secretly felt lucky that he didn't do anything to her. At the right time, Lin Hai said, let's go, everyone hasn't eaten yet? I'll treat you to dinner. Buggy laughed and said, how can this be so embarrassing? Lin Hai cried, this is an apology meal, there is nothing to be embarrassed about. Ah ha ha ha. Buggy said, you're a pretty nice guy. Alvida cried, I won't go. I'm going to find that man. Lin Hai smiled secretly, then I wish you immediate success, hee hee. In a hotel Lin Hai generously ordered a large table of dishes and also ordered a few bottles of wine. Lin Hai raised his wine glass and asked, why is Machi following you? Where is the guy with the knife? Machi cried, ah, you mean Buggy, he's tracking down the Straw Hats. Buggy laughed and said, let's not talk about that. Let's drink. Ha ha ha, today is such a happy day. I didn't expect that Lin Hai, you are such an interesting person. Lin Hai patted Buggy on the shoulder and said with a smile, you're not bad either. By the way, Alvida is really pretty. Are you interested in marrying her? Buggy pondered for a moment, well, we pirates pursue wealth, what's the use of a wife? Lin Hai was speechless, how can it be useless? I think you and her are a perfect match. Think about it, you married the most beautiful woman in East Blue. Doesn't this show how extraordinary you are, Buggy? Besides, marrying her won't affect your pursuit of wealth, right? Buggy pondered for a while, and became more and more moved by what Lin Hai said. Buggy immediately slapped the table and laughed, then it's decided. I will work harder to make Alvida my wife. Ha 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 ha, I'm really happy today. After they took a few sips of wine, Luffy and Zoro also entered the store. Because Buggy and Machi were wearing cloaks, Luffy and Zoro didn't know it was Buggy. When Luffy saw Lin Hai, he was immediately surprised and said, hey Lin Hai, you are eating such delicious food. As soon as he finished speaking, Luffy ran to Lin Hai's table and started to eat voraciously. Buggy didn't react yet and said happily, Lin Hai, are they your friends? Since you know them, just eat as much as you want. Oh, I forgot, you are the host, you should be the one saying this. Lin Hai smiled and said, we are free-spirited pirates, there is no need to be so formal. After saying that, Lin Hai quickly leaned close to Zoro's ear and whispered, eat quickly and don't ask. While eating, Buggy suddenly realized that the BD in the straw hat was right in front of him. Buggy took off his cloak and pointed at Luffy and said, you BD Straw Hat, I finally found you. Luffy looked up and asked in confusion, who are you? Buggy saw Luffy still eating and said angrily, stop eating. Have you forgotten who I am? Luffy exclaimed as he ate, wow, your nose is so red and round. Damn Straw Hat BD, still so rude. Buggy showed his dagger. Just as Buggy wanted to continue, Lin Hai interrupted, Buggy, Luffy is my captain, I can't let you hurt him. And you are my friend, I don't want to hurt you, so I took Luffy and the others away. Buggy was stunned, and immediately exclaimed, Lin Hai, you are such a kind-hearted guy. It's my honor to be your friend, woo woo woo. Machi on the side quickly reminded Buggy, Captain Buggy, they have already run away. Buggy finally reacted, hurry up and chase him. We can't let that BD Straw Hat get away no matter what. Yes, Captain Buggy. Just as the two were about to get up, they were stopped by the store owner. Guests, you haven't paid yet. Buggy and Machi looked at each other. Didn't they agree that Lin Hai would treat them? Now it was their turn to treat them. And the Straw Hat BD ate the most, right? Well, when Lin Hai ran away with that Zoro, he also took the wine away. What's even more hateful is that the Straw Hat BD directly took most of the food on the table in one bite. Lin Hai, Luffy, and Zoro came out of the restaurant, and when they reached a safe place, Luffy said dissatisfiedly, "I'm not full yet." Before he could finish his words, a gust of wind blew over and blew the straw hat off Luffy's head. Luffy hurriedly chased after the straw hat, and Zoro chased after Luffy. This gust of wind was too strange. Lin Hai quickly released observation haki, and sure enough, there was a strong aura not far away. Following the breath, he saw a figure in a green cloak standing there. Lin Hai quickly realized that it was Luffy's father, Dragon. Seeing that he had no intention of avoiding her, Lin Hai stepped forward and asked, "That wind just now was your masterpiece, right?" Dragon turned and nodded, "Yes, hello, Luffy's friend." "Hello?" Lin Hai asked in confusion, "Where are you leading him to?" Dragon cried, "Luffy wants to become the Pirates' King, so let him go and see the place where the Pirates' King Roger was executed. This is where everything started, and that is where he ended. It may not be a bad thing to let him feel it." "Is this where everything started?" Lin Hai shook his head and said, "This shouldn't be right, right? The place where everything started should be when the celestial dragons became gods. Since the celestial dragons came to power, everything has deviated from the original point. Freedom and human life are no longer precious. Chaos has begun to unfold, and people with lofty ideals have begun to ask for answers." Durag stared at Lin Hai in surprise, trying to see something from him. After a while, Durag asked, "You know a lot." Lin Hai shook his head and said, "It's all hearsay. By the way, your observation haki is really amazing. And your ability, is it Logia, the hurricane fruit?" Durag did not answer Lin Hai's words, but asked, "What do you think of this world?" "Me?" Lin Hai said speechlessly, "What can I say? Just do what you want to do." "Oh." Durag asked curiously, "Can you tell me what you want to do most?" "Ahem." Lin Hai said embarrassedly, "Let's go out to sea with Luffy, have adventures, pick up girls, and drink some wine." "Ha ha ha." Durag shook his head and laughed, "You shouldn't pursue this." Lin Hai interrupted quickly, "Don't try to persuade me, I don't want to be a hero, because I don't have that kind of good temper, this is already destined." "Really?" Durag thought to himself, "Then I wish you a pleasant journey." I saw that Durag was as fast as the wind, without moving his feet, he just kept changing positions. This weird footwork was so cool, I must learn it, it was simply a great way to show off. Chapter 49. Watching Dragon heading towards the Pirates King's execution platform, it seems that he is going to test Luffy and let him experience the true awareness of risking his life. Lin Hai thought about it and decided not to go. If he was found by Luffy, would he still face life and death? With Lin Hai's ability, Luffy didn't believe that Lin Hai couldn't save him. Then just watch from the dark and see that free and easy smile. Square at this time, Luffy was being held on the execution platform by Buggy using a rack, and Buggy was holding a knife to execute Luffy. The air pressure in the sky is getting higher and higher. It seems that it is controlled by Dragon. This guy's control over his own abilities is amazing. Coupled with Dragon's extraordinary observation haki, it would be strange if the world government could catch him. On the execution platform, Buggy held the scimitar in his hand and laughed, "Monkey.d. Luffy, you are so brave that you dare to offend me, Buggy-sama. Do you know what I have been through since I was knocked away by you and lost some body parts? Woo." As he was talking, Buggy couldn't help crying when he thought about his past experiences. And Luffy said anxiously, "Let me go, please, aren't you and Lin Hai good friends?" Buggy came to his senses and laughed, "How could I let you go, you BD? Although Lin Hai is my friend." "Oh, speaking of Lin Hai, he is much more sensible than you. I, Buggy, have been a pirate for so long, and this is the first time I've seen someone treat me to a meal. It's really gratifying." As he was talking, Buggy realized that he had gone off topic again. He reacted and said angrily, "Is this the time to talk about this? Monkey.d. Luffy, do you have any last words before you die?" "Ha ha ha ha." Luffy also realized that he seemed to be hopeless, and immediately shouted loudly, "I am the man who will become the king of pirates. Pirates king's men, men." The square suddenly became extremely quiet. Everyone looked at Luffy, who was about to be executed, in horror. Only Luffy's voice was echoing. At this time, Zoro and Sanji, who had just arrived, ran to save Luffy, but with their level as non-power users, it was obvious that they could not save Luffy. Luffy also understood the current situation. At the critical moment, seeing Buggy about to strike with a knife, Luffy calmly raised his head and smiled with a smile that made all the flowers bloom. "I'm sorry, everyone. I'm dying." This scene shocked the people watching below the execution platform. Facing life and death calmly, Smoker in the dark couldn't help but sweat a few drops on his forehead. He felt that this smile was too unusual. When facing death, shouldn't people have expressions of despair or fear? Unlike Luffy, who dared to say that he wanted to become the Pirate King at the execution site of Pirate King Roger. When he knew that death was coming, he could still smile, as if he was unstoppable and wanted to become the Pirate King. Smoker looked at the execution platform in surprise. No matter what the ending of Straw Hat Luffy was, at this moment, the Straw Hat guy was qualified to become the King of Pirates. At this moment, when Buggy's knife was about to touch Luffy, a lightning bolt that lit up the sky struck down from above the execution platform and knocked it down. The result is obvious: Luffy survived. Ah ha ha ha. After all, I didn't die. I'm lucky. Luffy picked up his hat and put it on, smiling with satisfaction. You couldn't tell at all that he had just returned from the gates of hell. Zoro and Sanji on the side secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Sanji was so shocked by the scene just now that he didn't even notice that the cigarette in his mouth had fallen. Finally, he stupidly asked Zoro, "Do you believe that there are gods in this world? Don't talk nonsense." After saying that, Zoro turned to Luffy and complained, "Luffy, you're going too far." Luffy laughed, "Hey? Sorry." At the right time, Lin Hai walked to Luffy and thought of the scene just now. If it were him, would he, Lin Hai, also remain calm? Lin Hai asked himself, yes. Seeing that the square had become very chaotic, Lin Hai said, "Let's set sail quickly." Good. However, just halfway through the run, trouble arose again. There was a very cool motorcycle parked in the middle of the street, and Smoka and Tashigi were standing in front of the motorcycle. Lin Hai spat inwardly, these two are troublesome people. After Lin Hai and others were stopped, Smoka said, "Your journey ends here when you meet me." Luffy cried, "No, I want to go out to sea and become the king of pirates." Smoker taunted, "With your strength, you can't even defeat me. Your so-called dream ends here." At this moment, Lin Hai suddenly had an inspiration and immediately attracted everyone's attention. Lin Hai came forward. "Ha ha ha, cha ha ha, cha ha ha ha." That's right, Lin Hai imitated Blackbeard teach. Everyone was attracted by Lin Hai's laughter, which rose from low to high and then was full of heroism. Lin Hai spread his hands and said, "Smoker, people's dreams never end, right? Ding, congratulations to the host for completing a flirtatious operation. The host's armament haki will be upgraded by 1 level as a reward. Please keep up the good work, host." "Here it comes, haki improvement is the most difficult, I didn't expect to have this reward." Lin Hai suddenly felt that his waist and legs were no longer sore. At this time, after hearing Lin Hai's words, Smoker's pupil shrank. Why did he feel that this guy was not simple? Moreover, this guy just deceived his feelings and cheated him of 3 cigars. "I can tolerate my aunt, but I can't tolerate my uncle." Just as Smoker was about to speak, Tashigi came forward with Lin Hai's reward and said, "Damn you Lin Hai, you actually lied to me before. I never thought you were such a vicious person." After that, Tashigi showed Lin Hai's bounty order. Now it was Lin Hai's turn to have his pupil shrink. Wasn't it 250 baileys? How did the bounty become 300 million? Nani? Luffy exclaimed and looked at Lin Hai in disbelief. Zoro also looked at Lin Hai. Isn't the change in the bounty too big? Sanji jealously lifted Lin Hai's collar and exclaimed, "What on earth did you do to anger the heaven and the people? Why did the bounty become so high?" The change in the bounty was mainly because the celestial dragons who was beaten by Lin Hai recognized Lin Hai's face while shopping. Originally, celestial dragons _ Charlos Saint wanted to set a higher bounty for Lin Hai, but beating celestial dragons was too serious. So after consultation with the 5 elders, they gave this amount. As for the reason, it was not made public. The celestial dragon's valued face the most. At this time, Zoro was a little jealous and said, "Lin Hai, what on earth are you?" Before he finished speaking, Lin Hai exclaimed, "Another nonsense." Then he did 20 backflips and ended up flipping into the wall. Ouch, it hurts so much. When the people on the street saw Lin Hai's action, their faces all turned black. Luffy on the side felt that his 30 million bounty was not so attractive anymore, and what about Zoro? How many times more is that when comparing his 10 million belly to 300 million belly? Zoro is a little autistic. And what about Sanji? He was already squatting in a place, drawing circles. Chapter 50. Smoker's face darkened and he said, "Lin Hai, I originally thought you were a scholar, but I didn't expect you to be a vicious pirate with a bounty of 300 million baileys. Even if I risk my life today, I will stop you here." Tashigi also drew his own saber and pointed it at Luffy and his group, saying, "I'm also going to risk the marine's name to stop you here." Damn, I got a little carried away just now. Lin Hai quickly fixed his hair, then put on a compassionate expression and said, "How could you do this to me? Do you know why the reward on me is so high?" "Why?" X5 Lin Hai looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, shed a tear, and then slowly said, "Last year, it was an autumn evening, the weather was fine and sunny, with a breeze blowing from time to time, just like a mother's gentle embrace, which is really nostalgic. Ding, congratulations to the host for completing a flirtatious operation. The host will be rewarded with a physical fitness improvement." Smoker's face darkened and he angrily said, "Speak to the point." "Ahem, I was just creating an atmosphere just now." Lin Hai waved his hands awkwardly and continued, "That evening, I was helping a retired marine with mobility problems cross the street. You don't know, he has a bedridden mother at home, his wife ran away again, and he has several hungry children at home, and he..." "Ding, congratulations to the host for completing the 3-hit combo, and your physical fitness has been improved by 1 level." Tashigi on the side felt that this sentence was so familiar, while Luffy and Sanji were already in tears and said sadly, "He is so pitiful, woo." Smoker pulled out his cross finger and pointed at Lin Hai and said, "What do you want to say, UBD?" "Ahem." Lin Hai quickly explained, "When I helped him cross the road, I unexpectedly ran into a passing celestial dragon. When he saw that we didn't kneel down to greet him, the snotty-nosed celestial dragon pulled out a gun and wanted to shoot us on the spot. Even ants are greedy for life, let alone us. Of course I would not sit and wait for death, so I slapped it, but who knew that it was so weak that it fainted? So he set such a high bounty for me. Smoker, what crime have I committed? I was defined as a sinner for no apparent reason. Why should a young man like me who is full of justice endure the pain that I shouldn't endure at this age? If helping a retired marine with limited mobility to cross the street and preventing him from getting hurt is a crime, then arrest me, I won't resist." Ding, the host's operation has touched the waist of the Feng Shao system. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced use of the space slash. It is no longer cooling down. 5 lakes, take off. Woo. At this time, after listening to Lin Hai's touching speech, Tashigi stepped forward and said to Smoker, he is so pitiful, woo. Zoro remained silent, while Sanji and Luffy wiped their tears and snot on Lin Hai. Wow! I didn't expect that you, Lin Hai, had such a past. It's so touching. Wow, Lin Hai, you are such a great person, you, wow. Looking at Luffy and Sanji, Lin Hai wanted to kick them both. Unable to bear it any longer, Lin Hai pushed Luffy and Sanji away and said angrily, "This is so dirty. Stop it, you two bastards." Smoker, who was standing by, was silent for a while, and finally said, "What you said is still open to discussion. Come with me to the marine base first. If things are really as you said." Damn, Smoker is an ox, right? Lin Hai didn't want to waste time talking to him anymore. He didn't believe what she said. It was not easy for him to make up such a story. Was it easy for him to do it? Space field, armament haki hardening. Lin Hai instantly appeared beside Smoker, grabbed Tashigi and Smoker, and threw them directly towards Smoker's office. Everything happened so fast, like a tornado. While Luffy and Sanji were still overwhelmed with emotion, Zoro asked in confusion, "Hey! Where are the 2 marines?" Lin Hai exhaled 2 streams of air from his nostrils, and then Kaido said, "After being thrown away by me, Do you still want to set sail? Why are you still crying? Run away quickly. If that annoying Smoker catches up to us, we won't be able to leave. In Smoker's office, Tashigi landed safely, and Smoker's head was stuck in the closet next to him. At this time, Tashigi was confused. Where was this? What on earth was going on? After a long while, Smoker finally pulled his head out. After lighting a new cigarette, Smoker said gloomily, Tashigi, are you coming with me to the Grand Line? This damn Straw Hat crew actually dared to tease Marine. It's really unforgivable. Tashigi said weakly, what if what he said is true? Smoker said angrily, even if it's true, given his behavior just now, I'm going to teach him a lesson. Wait. Tashigi quickly grabbed Smoker and reminded him, how did we get back here? If we meet them again, we won't be their opponent at all. Smoker said angrily, Tashigi, if we back down and don't dare to chase our opponents just because we can't defeat them, what kind of Marines are we? Tashigi quickly stood up. Kaido, I will go with you to the Grand Line and arrest the Straw Hat crew. Dragon, who was observing Luffy and his gang in the dark, thought that they had no way to deal with Smoker who already possessed the Logia Devil Fruit, so he wanted to help them, but he was almost confused by Lin Hai's operation. Durag, who was standing on the roof facing the wind, suddenly blushed. If what Lin Hai said just now was a lie, then wouldn't the anger he aroused be a joke? Finally, Durag shook his head and laughed, muttering softly, go, kids, if this is what you are after, then go and sail on the sea. People's dreams will never end? Interesting, but considering the situation, I'll help you too. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong wind suddenly blew across several streets in Logue Town. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.